If 11 is Luo, how can Opun not be Luo?
Oh my God. Eric. Is that not Luo?
If you're looking for evidence that we have relatives there,
This is it.
okay.
This is it.
Irrefutable evidence.
In fact, that's how I'm going to talk today, throughout.
Open. You will not open your mouth.
No. The complete opposite, in fact. She plans to open her mouth.
Welcome to the show. Wow, we have a lot to discuss today. There's a lot that's happening. Yesterday, the leadership of the Ministry of Health went to the National Assembly. They appeared before the Committee on Health, and they threw the bus back on top of the leadership of KEMSA. This bus is just, it's like a toy bus.
Where?
It is not people being thrown under. It's actually the bus,
is being thrown
on top of people. Okay, so we'll look at that. Okoth, there's reaction of that following the instruction by the leadership of the party in Nairobi. The MCAs have started taking action. And the residents of Migori County are saying, where they are.
Touch our man.
There's some division over that.
Would you say, Eric, that perhaps this issue of digging a grave for your enemy may actually perhaps point in the direction of digging a grave for yourself?
Kumbe, there's a message you were sending yesterday. Kumbe.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Took us a while to catch up, but
Yeah, we got it.
here we are now. We can see. So it's the same thing that we can say about Jonah Manjari.
Yes.
Digging a grave for Mutahi Kagwe. And Kagwe comes and says,
Maybe digging a grave for
Ingia.
yourself. A grave for yourself, yes.
Ingia
Oh,
hapo.
yes.
Get comfortable
In
there.
these lovely and should we say, emerging political times, that saying actually has no problem whatsoever gathering and gaining traction.
Yes, man. Okay. Anyway, we'll look at all those stories and also look at development funding. We spoke with Ron Yusumba last week about the work that his organization, IGAV, has been doing in terms of looking at how to support innovation, just companies that are coming up with innovative solutions to real-life problems, ordinary problems in the country, and supporting those to either, get into proper business phase or upscale their operations. Today we'll be speaking with the Deputy High Commissioner of
The
United Kingdom, and we'll hear more about what that program is doing. Okay, but let's start where we always begin. So that now that fellow Kenyans was in the assembly yesterday, the work was still left to Dr. Rashid Aman.
It was.
And what happened to Dr. Mercy Dr. Mercy Mwangangi?
She's there, I'm sure.
She's
I
around.
haven't heard her telling us.
She's not been on the podium for some time, but she's around.
She celebrated her birthday last week. She was on
did.
social media and said, thanking God
Opening
for a new
mouth
year.
of praise. Well, 114 cases yesterday is what had been seen in the country, with just 114. Sorry, I'm giving you wrong information.
Yesterday of yesterday or yesterday of the
Or
day
is
before,
it
the other
yesterday
yesterday.
or the day before?
Yeah, so the real case is that 4 more
The real yesterday.
the real yesterday now. 4 more cases of death happened yesterday, with the recorded new cases of 178 of COVID in the country, raising the total to 34,493. 3,474 samples were tested in the last 24 hours. So now you have a total sample load of cumulative tests of 459,562. So 178 cases yesterday, unfortunately 4 deaths. 238 patients recovered, bringing the total number of recoveries in the country to 20,449. 187 discharged on the home-based program, but it was interesting because I had a chat with a few people yesterday and who've been self-isolating after having contracted COVID. And this home-based care seems like it's still a matter of word and not of deed, at least from the side of the Ministry of Health.
Why? They didn't do isolation?
Nobody calls you. Nobody tells you anything. There's nobody you report to. So, yeah. Beyond getting a positive test, then you sit at home for 14 days and then Nobody calls.
Did they do the test in a public facility or private?
Public facility.
And the results were sent to them via message? Text message.
Yes.
You're positive. And then we're not told stay at home or nothing.
And then even during the duration of your illness,
that follow up, I don't know.
In order to follow up, somebody must have initiated contact. There was no contact initiation in the first place.
Contact tracing.
After your test results, that's it, my friend. You're on your own.
You know you have COVID now.
Just
do
what you need to
use
do.
Your
call
brain.
your doctor. Go call your neighbor who had it before. Go to the local pharmacy. Buy what you need to.
Deal with it.
Just be okay. See us again when you're taking the second test after 14 days.
And they took the second test?
Not yet.
Did they get any call to discharge them? So because we're talking about people being
Discharged
discharged from home-based care.
No. Like now, what CS Rashid Ahmed told us yesterday is that they are being discharged now from hospital, and they say now go home for another 14 days. Okay?
Oh, okay. So these are the people who were
in hospital,
who are now being discharged from hospital and being sent to
stay at home for another few days.
Okay.
Okay.
And then after that, you now observe if you have improved. If you're feeling better, leave.
Like this, go home.
Leave the house, go back
to wherever.
Hey. Okay.
Telling you. There's a term that
Kenyans
use often. It's this management of this COVID. Jua Kali. Just do what you need to do.
Jisot.
There you go.
I was listening to the BBC this morning, and of interest, one of the celebs tested positive after a brief holiday in Spain. Footballer. I'm told he's the most expensive footballer in the world. I think his name is Neymar or something.
Neymar.
Told you.
Brazilian.
Close by, yes. He has tested positive after a holiday in Spain. So the list goes on.
Yeah, quite a number. Usain Bolt tested positive.
Yeah, so the question, what struck me was, had he not gone to Spain on holiday, he may not have contracted COVID.
How is he faring?
Okay. He's the one who actually broke the news.
Thing is with us. You will get it.
Who?
You are likely to get it.
When you consider that very many people... Nduh.
Huh?
Remember, there's this little detail about COVID. Okay? There are those who exhibit signs, the signs that are spoken of. There are those who don't. And one gets the impression that very many people may very well have contacted the virus but have no clue.
But
that's what I'm saying.
That they got
if you will get it if you have not have it. That's if
someone like
Neymar.
Oh, that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Then why didn't you just say it?
But I did. I think you didn't hear me.
I know it's my hearing. I think I agree with you. It's my hearing.
Like Neymar knows because of his profession, and now that he's going back to begin a new league, they get tested. Yeah. And that's how you find out, oh, okay.
You may have actually had it for a minute there.
I got it. Oh, okay. And then there are those that get it and then they go through. So on Monday we heard from a doctor. This doctor works at Mbagathi Hospital. She's among the first people who were trained on COVID-19. Then she became a trainer of trainers. She went around the country training fellow doctors and medics on COVID-19, what you need to look out for, case identification, management, what you do. So she obviously knew that this is what COVID is all about. Then she says that this one time she's interacting with her brother, and then they go back home. She developed symptoms of COVID-19, which were everything else but the fever. Everything else but fever. So she was coughing, very tired. Woke up one day, went to work, and by the end of that day, she was wondering, so how am I even gonna go home? I am just too fatigued. I cannot even go home. Anyway, tested positive for COVID, and she went through the motions. She says the symptoms that she got put her down for a bit. Yeah, put her down for a bit. It was, she was on home-based care, but her experience is different from her brother, who tested positive as well.
And was okay.
But he is easy. Brother lives with the folks. And the father also tests positive.
And they're okay. As in, they are
Got
not
some mild
exhibiting
symptoms.
any, maybe mild symptoms. It begs the question, was COVID with us long before the alarm bells were rung in China?
Probably.
It's highly possible.
Because remember, the narrative that pushed the origins of the disease to China took hold and stayed there. So no other narrative was allowed to actually come up, even when immediately after the matter was made national news in China and it became international news. We started hearing of cases, say, in the US, in Europe. Still, the focus was China. Even when the numbers in Europe now became stratospheric, the focus was still China. Yes.
Even when France looked back and they came out to say it's possible that this thing was with us as far back as December.
It was still China.
Yep.
Even when America said, folks,
It's a Chinese flu.
now that, yes, that was a consistent narrative.
Yeah.
When they went back and started testing some of the people who had tested positive, the infections were not recent. They realized that what the incidences didn't happen within the space that the discussion of COVID had taken center stage. It had happened earlier. Still, the narrative was China.
Anyway, let's look at the global numbers.
Okay, so we're still looking at high numbers, especially from some countries, taking the global numbers to over 26 million now, just shy of 26.2 million. 6,290,737 cases in the United States. And also, just a month and a half ago, we were looking at this milestone that the U.S. is going to cross 100,000 deaths. And oh my goodness, how is it possible that this one virus is going to bring 100,000 deaths in 6 months in the U.S.? Well, guess what? They're just 10,000 short of 200,000 cases a month and a half later. 200,000 cases of death. And so, we look at it and we say, how could this possibly happen? Where on earth would it ever have been imagined that so many people could die in such a short period of time over something that the world doesn't know about? Well, this is the reality and this is where we are. Brazil now has crossed the 4 million case mark. India is hot on its trails. And Russia has also crossed the million case mark with 17,000 deaths. South Africa dropping slightly, 630 now. Yesterday, the cases in South Africa were 625. So about 5,000, almost 6,000 cases having been found in South Africa over the last 24 hours. Still looking at increasing numbers in Mexico. Spain, as we've mentioned, is still high up there, having dropped over time. Looking at countries like France, who've also dropped. The United Kingdom, a little bit Saudi Arabia here and there. Italy significantly has taken a drop, and the cases that we were looking at about 1,000 cases a day over the last week or so. That has changed significantly. It'll be still interesting to know what a lot of these countries are doing when it comes to reopening of their economies and now going back into school in the next couple of weeks.
Anyway, let's take a break now. The live stream is up on www.facebook.com.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
All right. In Nairobi this morning, we're going to experience
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
23 minutes after 6. Good morning to you and welcome to the Situation Room. Before we look at the big headlines, let's look at today's big proverb.
A close friend can become a close enemy.
Can become. So you should assume that they are.
Well, actually, the what gives such a saying, simple, straightforward saying, weight, is there's a popular, it's a popularized saying that you want to keep your friends close, but your enemies even closer.
Closer.
It is credited to one of the Caesars, it is said. I'm not certain which particular Caesar.
It was Julius.
They say, see, Julius. Is this according to Shakespeare or according to the historians of the time?
Yes.
Yes, you see, that is the reason why I am not certain as to which particular Caesars. You know, these Caesars were many. There was a time you even had two Caesars ruling at the same time. One in the eastern part of their empire, the other one in the western part. So if you consider this and then you look at our politics and the times and you look at the way people have moved around in political circles, one moment they're in this camp, in this party.
Kidogo.
Yes, then give it time. The people who you were told were sworn enemies, sworn enemies, are now shaking hands and they're buddy, chami, brother. So, I think it makes a lot of sense when you consider it. But we shall expound on it later.
All right.
Yes.
It is similar to that one of what eats you is inside your clothes.
That, I think, would work perfectly. When you think of some of these four-wheeled animals that some inhabit the edges of your bed, some inhabit your hair.
Four-wheeled animals? Is that what you said?
Lice are four-wheeled.
Wheeled.
Yes, if you look at the terrain they inhabit.
And how they move.
And how they move. And how they manage to survive. And they're surviving on a live creature. They're four-wheeled. They've got traction.
Okay.
By the way, if you happen to have those creatures in your hair, it's not a question of removing them. You remove all your hair. All. It's the only way you get rid of them. All.
Completely.
And so that your head looks like your forehead.
Completely.
That's the only way.
There's
That's
no
the
other
only
way.
way to deal with it.
Yes, exactly. Well, so I say four-wheel. You can't scratch them away. You can't sort of like Dettol them away. You can't.
Wow. All right, looking at the headlines shortly. Hey, let's appreciate this one. This is Chepto Lunjao, who has sent an appreciation tweet to the Situation Room. So we appreciate you back, Chepto Lunjao. And Eddie Odor says he's addicted to the Situation Room conversation. What I like most is your good command of the English language. That's for you, Nduh. All the sensibility in it. That's for you, CT. Truly mature. That's for me. And
You know when it began? When Eric began with that very generous and liberal dispersion of accolades,
This man.
I was thinking, my goodness.
I was wondering, okay, I hadn't actually read the full tweet. So I was thinking, oh my God, so what am I going to end up with? It landed perfectly.
It did.
Listening in live from Koru Town, Eddie Odor, thank you very much. Omoriki Vincent Onyaboke. Happy Thursday to Eric, Nduh, and CT. Tuned in from JKIA, all is well. We are enjoying your mature talks as we move our country forward. Yes, tuendelee kuendesha gurudumu la nchi yetu, la taifa letu mbele.
Wow. I keep hearing words I've never heard in my life.
Like gurudumu.
Yeah. Still on word
It
for
is
Gurudumu is what the lice have. 4 of them.
wheels.
But yeah.
Gee, okay.
Okay, so let's look at the headlines.
Please, let's. In the hot seat, CS throws KEMSA under the bus. COVID funds probe Health, CS Kagwe, and PS Mochache say no money was lost. Of course it wasn't. But fault KEMSA over purchase of the COVID-19 equipment. Okay? So it's a back and forth of who said, sounds like playground games now. She did it. No, he did it. So the Transport Ministry also denies that supplies donated by billionaire Jack Ma were sold to private firms in Tanzania. Of course they did. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe yesterday said no money was lost, graft, but accused the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency of mismanagement of funds by over-procuring health equipment for COVID-19 and inefficiency. Kagwe, who appeared before the National Assembly Health Committee, said KEMSA was stuck with billions of assorted stuff whose prices had fallen by 50%. And I quote, KEMSA currently has 6.2 billion shillings worth of equipment that they are holding in their stores and cannot sell because the prices have gone down. The problem was the agency's failure to find the right balance in procuring the equipment. He exonerated himself of any wrongdoing, saying those accusing him of putting pressure on KEMSA were those who had become casualties of his tough decisions on the operations of the ministry, including the agency. He was named by suspended KEMSA CEO John Manjari as one of the senior ministry officials who exerted pressure for award of tenders for supplies and equipment to support the COVID-19 fight.
Can you imagine if it was the other way around? If they had under-procured?
Right. And it was not enough.
Yep.
The question then would have been so.
what I don't understand Where does the money lost issue come in?
That's saying that there was no money lost, right?
I mean, yes, what does that mean?
You remember what Keraito also told us?
What did he
Was it
tell us?
Anglo Leasing or was it Triton? No money has been lost.
This is what I need to understand. Because those who say it clearly understand what they're saying. I am the one who doesn't understand what is being said. What do they mean by money was not lost?
As in, every shilling spent can be accounted for. In other words, there is no black hole when it comes to there was 1 billion shillings and then they suddenly not.
As in, no person was paid for supplying air.
Air, as in the maize.
But was this
previous
actually
years.
the issue?
That's what I was going to say, that was not the problem that was being discussed.
Was that ever the problem, really?
In some instances, I think it came out as part of that some of these organizations had absolutely no capacity and yet they had been paid.
Well, talking of capacity, this is something that has actually now come squarely to begin the process of haunting one Kraide. The simple reason that it is said that a childhood friend of his,
Brother.
yes,
David.
they call him Kraide.
I was wondering.
It's
can I
okay.
hear
It's called Kraide was the police,
police spokesman,
Yes.
No relation of Murade's.
No.
Okay. It's Murade.
Because a childhood friend of his
Was given
was
a tender. According to what we read in the papers, he was unable to meet the requirements of the tender, so he didn't supply. And that company, Killig, has been mentioned. And so Murade has been brought in to this particular discussion.
because he's a friend of
He's
this
a friend,
person.
and he said, yes, he's my friend. And
so-
we do business with him.
The issue here, though, this is some serious drama. This friend has a surname Gashoka, right? Somebody else with a surname Gashoka, who is a brother of this friend, goes onto social media and says, you know what, my brother is being dragged through the mud because of Murade, because they are friends.
He goes even further to say that, just because they did not fulfill the requirements of the tender doesn't mean they were not involved in the murky happenings that are being talked about.
So he's basically just saying his brother is involved in this because of his...
Essentially, another bus has been introduced in the conversation.
I'm telling you, these buses, I don't know where they're going to park. Or it's the same bus, Sha.
There are enough buses to go around.
There are many buses that are being
On this
used
COVID
here.
matter. Oh my goodness, no shortage.
Expect some more.
No shortage of buses.
Unfortunately, when you see those kind of, very many names being thrown around, nothing sticking on the wall, that's how that investigation dies.
That's exactly what I was going
So
to
it's
say. By
way
the time
out.
someone says, I
That's
didn't,
it.
she didn't, it's
And
there,
then
it's
the blah,
not
blah,
there, was
oh,
not
PS
there.
counts, PS and which letter, that's what I do, that's my job. I put pressure. Somebody says, no, you know that. I can say 28 minutes to 7. This is the situation. Let's take a look at what's happening in the world this Thursday morning. And then
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
An accident right now. So as you're from that, in all directions, you're aware that if you're out, you know that it's sneaking along ever so slowly from this very slow, but we'll be fine regardless. There's a standstill already in Glasgow. There was an accident this morning. Not less than about 20 already. Just traffic hour. Hopefully that can be. Keep an eye on the road and show what looks like it's it. You see something that we should know about this? It's Thursday.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Line do you have, CT?
Well, there are very many headlines that one can speak of. But the one that I find particularly interesting is the Daily Nation. The Ramaphosa broom. Now, something interesting is happening in South Africa and in the ANC. You know, when we talk about this COVID millions and billions, we may think that we are the only people who have such problems. Unfortunately, the president of South Africa has had his cup full when it comes to problems that have been leveled directly at the ruling party. And more so, they have been leveled directly, not just at the ruling party, but at close associates of his. Now, just when you think the matter is settling down, it appears that there are two clear factions within the ANC. They are the pro-Zuma faction and the pro-Ramaphosa faction.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes. But now, what has come to the fore, this is Ramaphosa drawing the line according to the headlines. And he is saying that if you're a member of ANC, okay, and you have been mentioned, remember we talked about mentioning? Okay. You are supposed to step down. In fact, one such person is an MP for a place called Bongani, an MP by the name of Bongani Bongo. Bongani Bongo is a very unique person in the sense that at some point in his life, he was also a member of President Mugabe's cabinet. But now he's an MP in South Africa. Just so that you understand.
All right.
He has been told to step down. Now, stepping down here means he stops being an MP. Yes. But they also require that when you step down, then you can clear. What I don't understand is they say, so that you can clear your name. So when you've cleared your name, do you continue being an MP?
That story is done.
Yes. Or do your constituents wait for this particular story? You know, you don't have assistant MPs or deputy MPs.
But you remember they have proportional representation in South
Yes,
Africa.
they do.
People don't actually vote for an individual, they vote for the party.
Yes.
So when you stand down, maybe it will just remain vacant. If you're cleared, you can come back
Yes.
into the same slot that the party had nominated you.
But you
to
stood
occupy.
and you won. Yes. For the MP, you stand. Because the other parties who will also present their... I mean, the party will nominate you, but you have to compete. There's competition.
Is there?
Yes, there is. For member of parliament, there's competition.
No.
Eric, if there's no competition, then how on earth do these other parties... How is it that...
It's proportional representation. Depending on the number of votes that this party gets in this constituency, then already they have said, if we win, this is a list of the MPs. Not necessarily that CT Muga will be the one in Muhoroni, but CT Muga will be a member of parliament of this party. So you look at the number of seats, the number of votes that you get, and then you divide them up proportionally, and then you say, so you are able to nominate 20 MPs. This particular party will nominate 10 MPs, will bring 10 MPs into the House.
So what you're
So
saying...
the MP does not necessarily, in fact, that's the push in Kenya. The MP does not necessarily represent that constituency. It's not like now you are Moses Kuria for Gatondo South. You are Moses Kuria MP.
So then how does the opposition get their MPs?
Same way.
Same way.
So if we went into Gatondo South, right, and around the country, there will be let's say 150,000 votes for Jubilee, and there will be some 50 1,000 votes for ODM. There will be some 10,000 votes for Maendeleo Chap Chap. Then we'll all combine all that across the country.
But essentially, you go politicking for your party. You don't go politicking for individuals.
For the individual.
Then the party now, once they have once they have gotten the position, the party then now nominates the individual who will fill the spot that they have been.
So we have 290 constituencies. We have 290 MPs in Parliament, but there's no single MP who says you represent this particular constituency. It could be assumed that you represent this constituency because you come from that area. So you're the MP from here, but you're not the MP for.
Why didn't we adopt this in the Bomas draft?
Yeah?
There was a proposal like that. Proportional representation was among the
why didn't we
initial
adopt?
proposals.
Yes. Because, in all honesty, can you imagine the sort of heat and negativity we would actually remove from our politics?
From politics.
There'll be hue and cries, so and so isn't a good representative. But look at the heat generated during election time. That would go.
It would go, for sure. But I think it was clear that one of the reasons why it was rejected is that then you take away the glory that the individual would have, more or less, which they have now.
But then
For you to be on that party's list, right? You have to be a very big person. But somebody can assume, for example, I want to be just an independent guy, go and campaign in this constituency and get in. Or I'll campaign on a small party called Tip Tip, and I will still be elected MP for Kibwezi. Even though we have big parties like PNU and ODM and all the rest.
Yeah.
Well, the executive gathering of the ANC determined this.
They said step down.
So, so this gentleman, Mr. Bonga, is just one of several ANC MPs who've been told step down.
Why? And he's allied to Jacob Zuma.
It is reported that he's allied to Jacob Zuma. You see, what is of interest here, the stepping down here is a little different from ours, isn't it? Because the party can actually tell you to step down.
Yep.
If the party organs, the Supreme Party organs determine that you should step down, you will step down.
Step down.
Yes. So in a case...
Because they have the power like that. You see, like
yes,
like
so
what
they
we
gave
said,
you the job.
Kanu did with the MCAs in
Yes.
what was West Pokot.
West Pokot, yes.
Right? Kanu went and said, all these are nominated MCAs, all of you out.
So the closest we can understand this thing to is with those who are nominated. Because you're actually given the job.
You're given the job by the party.
Yep.
And the party can take away the job.
Yes.
Toe the line.
Well, Ramaphosa has drawn the line in the
Yes,
sand.
he has.
He has
Big
determined this thing, he is not
Gwende.
going to allow people to joke. But something that I must talk about here. This matter of institutional racism that keeps coming up in the U.S. Is this a figment of some people's imagination? Is this just a series of accidents that have had this unfortunate happening of being sequential? Is it something that one must look at with an understanding that the reverse of it could also happen in other countries, or something similar may happen? Because the fact that you have the same background, like we are all citizens of this country, Africans. So the issue of racism may not come in. What comes to the fore in our case is tribalism. Okay? And if you want to take it, and if you want to devolve it, okay, then it's clanism. If you want to devolve it further, it's family. And why do I mention this? Because what has been in the media for the longest time has been this issue and this discussion around dynasties versus non-dynasties. So we've gotten down to the very basic devolved unit of family in a political setting. And we're looking at what is bringing about this debate in the US. Somehow shooting seems to focus. Somehow black men, not black people, black men or people of color, but black men more than anybody else seem to be to receive the brunt of this violence.
Well, the thing is, I don't think it keeps popping up, CT. I think that it has always been there, but that what is happening now is that people have become more aware of it and are speaking out with more consistency than they previously would. You've never seen this kind of discourse taking place in the United States. You can't compare it with what was being spoken of 10 years ago. But it is clear and it is evident to people now, because what truly is the case is that you have more educated black people at this particular point in time than you ever have had in the history of the United States. And that, truth be told, was the intent, to have as few educated black people in the US because they realized the potential that they had. So the racism was institutionalized. It was not just a matter of, well, okay, let it be between Nduh and CT that we just don't like each other because we're of different color. But it was institutionalized, from financial institutions to educational institutions to professional institutions across board. It was that, let's keep these particular people of society as depressed, and I don't mean depressed as in kept as low as possible, because the chance of them essentially taking over financially, taking over professionally, taking over in the sports world was actually quite high.
But the sports world, they took over. It's not that they could. They did.
They did take over because it was one of the things that they were then allowed to do because they didn't realize the potential that it had to soar.
But remember, you know, it's interesting about consequences, unintended and otherwise. If you look at the manner in which slaves were handled and managed, those who survived were definitely the strongest and the fittest. So you just think of that genetic build-up and the consequences a year later. If you're talking about something that requires physical prowess, they are going to excel. Simply because their upbringing and the manner in which they had lived guaranteed that they were going to be a certain type of people.
When we discussed this issue a couple of months back, when the Black Lives Matter movement was gathering steam and momentum across the US and all over the world, I asked this question: do you guys think this is going to bring in the required systemic change? And I was skeptical then. I'm still skeptical up to now. Because since then, since the killing of, what was his name? The first time? George Floyd. How many more have we seen? How many more actions have we seen with authorities against black people?
The thing is that I think there's a lot of silent action that's taking place right now in terms of systemic and institutional change. There's a lot of voting that's taking place for things to be reformed in the police force, for things, and still in institutional organizations and across board. It's actually happening. It's just that now the announcements come, they're few and far between, but the push is still there.
Why are they silent? When the protest is global and very visible, why would the changes be silent? Why would the reaction to that be silent?
Well, I think I'm saying there's a lot of push. It's happening. Policy is being changed.
Where?
I mean, it is in the US. For example, it's happening in the police. In the police reforms, they're actually taking place right now. You have people who are voting on those lines now, who are being asked to vote to have some of those changes being made as high as Congress. It's happening.
Has a vote taken place?
No, it hasn't taken place
There you
yet.
go.
But I mean, the clamor for it is going on right now. That's what I'm saying.
Clamor is going on. That is clamor. The result is what I am after.
It's not going to happen right now.
Yeah,
and that's what they're saying. It's not going to happen right now. It is going to happen. It's not going to happen right now. The thing is about change is that...
You see, whenever that conversation gets that thing of it's going to take time, this is the same thing that happened over the very many years. When they were marching onto Washington in the 60s, it was going to take time. When the same kind of conversation was happening in the 70s, in the 80s, with the LA riots, it was going to take time. Happening in 2020, and the conversation is, it's going to take time. What time?
When did segregation,
put the foundations in place.
When did segregation end in the United States? It was not something, the walk on Selma, Alabama that you're talking about, it was not that they marched today and then segregation ended tomorrow. Of course it didn't happen one day and then the next. It took time, but it happened.
But the reforms that you're talking about,
Now
if it's
imagine
just
if they
about
kept
institutional police reform, that should happen immediately. Why are we saying that it's going to happen?
And you're looking at a system
time.
you're looking at a system that has been in place for hundreds of years.
It does not matter. It should change now.
Okay.
And if it doesn't change now, then they're going to be played.
I'm telling you
because that momentum will die down after this election. Because right now, it's an election issue. So there are sides of it that are, of course, riding this wave because it's an election issue. They want to keep it up there in the public domain, trying to portray. See, there's this side that's supported by the president, the current president, that's thinking this way. So let's push a conversation in the other way to show the other side is thinking the other way and whip up the emotions so that people can come and vote. Wait, I'm telling you.
I don't think we can
March
downplay. I don't think we
next
can
year.
downplay the resolve of people to actually have this change come about. I don't think that we can put it down to just an election issue, because the issues that they have been dealing with is not something that started with Trump. It didn't even start with Obama. It did not start with George Bush before him.
And it did not end.
And so it's not, it can't be
The
downplayed to
resolve,
an election.
the resolve of the campaigners is strong. The resolve of the people who need to take action is what I'm questioning.
I brought in this discussion because it's something we can learn from. You see, systemic injustice is something that happens in every part of the world, and it's something that must be seen, and it must be stated for what it is. Now, you may think, well, black people in the U.S. were slaves, they were treated badly, but I don't think a true picture is often brought to the fore of what this so-called bad treatment was. In 1921, a place called Tulsa in Oklahoma, something very unique happened. There was a black community in that place. And this black community were very, 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 very creative. They, within just their own community, they managed to build their own banks. Essentially, they got their own economic setup working, and they were wealthy. Now, so far the story is okay. Then it became clear that they were doing much better than their white neighbors. It was clear. It was theirs, they were handling it, they were managing it. It took one incident that took place in their town, and it was claimed that a black man had either inappropriately spoken to, inappropriately touched. It was a black man being accused of doing something that he shouldn't have done to a white woman. And the reaction was that town, that was a black town, was brought to the ground, and people were killed. That town was an eyesore, because everything that had been taught to white people at that time was completely being overturned just by the existence of this town. These people are not supposed to have any intelligence. They're not supposed to be able to do things that white people could do. They were supposed to be downtrodden. And not because they were being sat on, but it's because that was the way they were inclined. They couldn't do these things. In our country, for the longest time, with colonization, it was understood that we could do woodwork, metalwork, manual labor. That was what our brain capacity could manage. And it was taught. The independent schools that came up in central Kenya were a reaction to this. Said, no, folks, no. We can do more.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So the conversation continues. We're looking at the big headlines and big stories in the papers today. The state has frozen assets of 9 people who it has referred to as terror financiers. This is according to Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i, who ordered the immediate freezing of the assets attached to 9 Kenyans who are alleged to be financing the Al-Shabaab operations. Those 9 had in March this year been granted audience by the police to defend themselves on why they cannot be declared special entities. They all have pending terror-related charges in courts. They were notified. The suspects notified then were Hamal Eden Ali, Walid Ahmed Zain, Sheikh Yogor Saboru, and Mohammed Abdi Ali, aka Abu Fida. So the businessmen and women are based in Isli, in Nairobi, but some operate in Mombasa and Mandera, and they've been running M-Pesa shops. According to Dr. Matiang'i's statement yesterday, he said the enemy is progressively planting operatives among civilians strategically to advance his agenda through recruitment and radicalization to violent extremism and terrorism. We shall neither surrender into the hands of terrorism nor play into the narrative propounded by terrorists of discrimination along ethnic and religious lines in this war. The only way to deny terrorists the means to threaten our way of life is to choke their facilitation networks. And that's why the accounts of this particular business people have been frozen. So they operate M-Pesa shops, they mean Safaricom shops and M-Pesa shops. They have other businesses, and they're accused of being conduits and financiers of terror. Accounts frozen.
That is actually the normal trend that security officers and personnel around the world do. Because in the absence of finance, it then becomes very difficult to actually operationalize these terror intentions.
So then it would be assumed that if every action has an immediate reaction, that the reaction then in this case that you would see cases of terror go down if you have frozen these accounts.
I would argue it would help in bringing it down. It isn't as though it is the only thing that will bring it down. But the question that it actually brings to the fore is, why is it that you get the numbers of people who decide that their chosen career is now going to be terrorism?
The commercial aspect is very, very tempting. It's very appealing. For people that you will speak to who came out of it, who survived leaving some of these terrorist groups behind, that's what they will tell you. That the kind of money or the kind of resources that they throw at you at very often a very young age is too good to give up. And that's the thing. The motivation really is not to go out there and slaughter a bunch of people. The motivation is that your life will take a significant jump economically.
And imagine you come back, you're in a sleeper cell, so you're doing nothing, and all you do is receive cash.
Yeah.
And
your family receives
family's
money, they
taken
don't
care
know
of.
but they're taken care of.
You're just waiting for instructions.
Yes, that I actually understand. That I do understand. But the money aside, it isn't as though everyone who is involved in the terror business is in it for money. Remember, the West experienced something rather unique when people who were neither Muslims at birth, had no affiliation to the Middle East, because the Middle East is where the blame game centers when it comes to terrorism. Neither were there, but they had chosen and moved. First of all, they had converted to Islam, and then they had actually moved their bases and started living in areas.
What motivated those ones?
That is the question.
What they call the homegrown terrorists.
Yes, that you have hit the nail on the head, because that's what I'm asking. What is it that what narrative convinced them that this was the thing to do? What were they achieving? What is it that they were aiming for?
A sense of purpose?
Yes.
Coming through religion as well.
Actually, it is a sense of purpose. It is. You see, the thing about a sense of purpose is this. It transcends financial gain. It transcends anything that you may have believed in and what you actually have. Because it also helps you redefine yourself. And you become someone who...
This conversation will be now. This is a situation like this or more human. It's now 7 o'clock. In the next hour, we will look at and the action that those it's a result.
Sugar and spice and everything I am. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nakuru. Traffic.
Very crazy today. Moving forward. We know that this is today at about 6.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
So
the
at
only
2
way
minutes
to
after 7
start
o'clock
your
on this
day.
third day of September, Thursday. What is today's proverb again, CT?
Yes, indeed, that is a valid question.
Of friends and enemies.
Well, it is actually a one-liner, if you may call it that.
Mm.
Yes. Let me paraphrase it.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever is a close friend today can be a close enemy tomorrow. Operative word is close.
Close.
Yes.
Can be a close friend today and a close enemy. What's a close enemy?
Well, he's somebody who knows you well. So we talk about people being close, not because of proximity, physical proximity, but it's the history that you've shared, and that takes over. So what that history therefore means is there's a lot they know about you.
Okay.
Yes. So the fact that you don't get along with this person you previously got along well with, doesn't mean that the knowledge they have of you is diminished simply because you're not on talking terms. It doesn't diminish. The knowledge is still intact.
It's still there.
Yes. So, apart from just the fact that the two of you don't get along, everything else is constant. You still know the same people. You still understand the same things. It's just that you don't get along. Now, such a person as an enemy would not be good. Why do you think that the world's second, well, we call it the world's second profession, because the profession that is considered worldwide to have been the first was sex work, followed by spying. Why do you have spies? So
Not farming?
No, spying.
I'd have thought farming was the first.
Talk about work for which you're paid. Spying.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Yes. It's because of the understanding that when you have intimate information about a people, about a place, then it gives you what we call an informed position from which to make a decision. Yes. In the same way, if it's about friends, if someone knows a lot about you, the decisions they can make will be informed. They know what you like, they know what you don't like, they know a great deal. That's where the closeness comes in.
That's where the closeness comes in.
Yes.
Okay. So talking about close friends and close enemies, let's look at what's happening to the governor of Migori. All right. He's vowing to fight off the ODM plot to oust him. Migori governor is putting on a brave face a day after the ODM sealed his fate and told its members to impeach him. A defiant Obado said he would rally MCAs to reject attempts to kick him out of office. He's accusing the party of malice and describing the ouster plot as selective justice. ODM chair John Badi, however, declared the party will not reverse its decision. Obado can call us names, but nothing will change our resolve to initiate the impeachment motion, guided by our party's stand and philosophy. He was outraged by attacks by Obado's supporters on social media, saying out of 41 Migori ward representatives, 37 had agreed to back the ouster motion. The proposed impeachment brought out Obado's political enemies. There we go.
You may
They
think
must have been friends at some point, these same people.
Yes, they must have been. They must have been, and the people who know each other well. But the party may think what it likes, and it has its prerogative, but it doesn't mean that there are no people who support Obado.
Yeah.
There are people who support Obado, and there are people who believe that he has been a good governor. Opinions may differ on the subject, but that is usually the truth, is it not?
It is.
Yes. I mean, you think of any villain or someone who has been vilified, whether internationally or not. Let's talk about, say, some of the drug lords that we read about in Latin America and in America, and whose names we have read and we've come to understand. To assume that they are considered an enemy of the state by the government doesn't mean that people don't like them. No, there are people who actually like them. There are people who are even willing to die for them. Yes. Here we have a case where a governor has been accused of corruption. ODM has raised the bar. And they said, look, within our ranks, we are not going to put up with this. So essentially what they're doing is something similar to what President Ramaphosa is doing in South Africa, except that one little detail here. The South African political system is different from ours.
The party can take action.
The party can take action and it sticks. The executive committee just needs to meet, make a decision, and that's it.
So if you look at what the party is doing, has initiated against the sitting governor, Obado, and asking the MCAs to follow due process, there's, if you've got a case that you can bring up against the governor and you can impeach him, please go ahead and bring it to the floor of the House. And a number of MCAs have already started signing that petition and saying, we are ready to support this to go through. And what Obado is now arguing and saying, look, come on, this is all too much of political witch hunt. Why don't you just let due process take its course in court? Why are you coming? Why is this selective justice? Why am I the only one? Am I the only ODM governor or ODM leader who has been accused of corruption, of abuse of office?
As controversial as it may seem, I am agreeing with that sentiment. Because if you're going to take such a stance, it should be across board. It should be that if you're going to cite people for any kind of abuse of office or any kind of behavior which doesn't then toe a particular line when it comes to party, when it comes to government, when it comes to country, let it be that way across board. Somebody is alleged to have committed a particular crime. Somebody is under the radar because of some kind of act of corruption or whatever it may be. They should be censured at that point. It should not be selective. It should not be that, all right, in this case, we're going to play some politics. It should be across board. Anybody having been seen to behave in a certain manner, which does then not conform to whatever standards that you have set as a party, as a government, as a country, they should step down. They should be put away. It should not be that, all right, well, this person in this case, there was this little issue that, no. it should be across board. So there I agree with him. Now, whether he did or did not do allegations, this, that, the other thing, that's totally different. But on that point, I do agree with him. It should not be just him. There are other people whose names have been mentioned. There are other people who have said to have done 1, 2, 3 or the other thing. They also should have been asked to step down. They also should have been censured.
Enter politics.
Unfortunately.
Yes, and those who would like to give this thing a political twist will go as far back as when we had the coalition government and Deputy President Ruto was Minister for Agriculture under the ODM docket. It is said that at that particular point in time, there was the sugar board politics. And at that time, it is said that one Raila Odinga supported a certain gentleman called Saulo Busolo for a certain seat in that board, and one deputy president, Dr. William Ruto, supported Obado. Obado won that particular seat. You fast forward it to the first election of the governor in Migori County. It is again said that the Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, supported Professor Edward Oyuki. For this is someone with whom they had shared political interests and commonality, and they had even served in jail together with for the political activities. That Raila Odinga supported this gentleman for the governorship of Migori. Again, Obado won that seat. But whenever this is mentioned, the Ruto support isn't mentioned in this particular election. But however, statements that the governor himself was later to make in public, and it's in public record, asking his people of Migori to support him to move and walk and attend rallies with the deputy governor.
President.
Did I say governor? President. Yes. Tongue in cheek. So, one could argue that, again, like with South Africa, the lines were already being drawn and then drawn in the sand. Then there was a little detail of an ODM office that was supposed to be inaugurated in Migori. What happened then was a drama of enormous proportions because many young men, a goon squad, landed on the guests who were there. Among these guests were Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, governor of Kisumu, Hassan Joho, governor of Mombasa, and a beating was rained on these lovely dignitaries. And the word helter-skelter comes to mind when you consider the speed and alacrity with which people moved in the direction of the road heading towards Homa Bay. Now, that is what happened. So now, if one were to deduce that one governor of Migori has had for the longest time positioned himself as someone whose view and whose perspectives differ from that of the party leader, one would not be wrong. One would not need to look far to find evidence. However, this current case that we have, it isn't the first time that this has been mentioned. He isn't the first governor. He isn't the only governor. What I would like to know is, what are the party rules and regulations with regards to their party members who have been accused of corruption?
Or other things.
The chairman says the party has a philosophy.
The party has a philosophy.
And that is a philosophy that they followed to summon the MCAs to Nairobi to tell them, you guys go ahead and lodge this impeachment motion.
Philosophy.
That states what?
Zero tolerance to corruption, I'd assume. I don't know, but looking at that, you can basically just deduce and say probably it's actually the philosophy is zero tolerance to corruption. And if a case has been brought against a sitting governor on corruption, then the next thing that we want to do is we're going to support his ouster.
When did that particular philosophy come to the fore?
I'm sure the ODM party was formed in around the year 2006. So unless...
That philosophy was born at that time as well.
Yeah, it should have been born at that time.
The accusations and their court cases. The governor of Busia, who is an ODM member, has also been in court, is still in court.
So Peter Ojamong, the court ruled in March this year that the governor, Ojamong, and 8 others who are facing an 8 million shillings graft case have a case to answer.
So if there's a case to answer according to the court of the land,
Yes.
then why has this individual also not been censured?
They
and
are
has
in
to
court,
step
they are
down?
facing this.
So why have they also not been asked to
Remember,
step down?
Obado is
And
not
that's
in
what
court.
I'm saying.
Obado is in court.
No. His day in court. Has the court made a decision regarding the accusations? No. In Ojamong's case, the court has made a ruling.
The court has already decided that yes, we
Yes.
shall proceed to
Yes.
to
To
full
trial.
trial
Yes.
on this particular
Yes.
matter.
In Obado's case, we haven't arrived at that
We are
point.
still at the preliminary stages
Yes,
of
we
this
are.
particular one. And also, it doesn't even matter whether you are talking about a governor who belongs to your party. As long as you have MCS in a particular ward, in a particular county, those MCS can rise up and say, in the stand of our party, whether you're the minority or the majority, we are going to try and convince our fellow MCAs to support our impeachment motion. Nairobi has very many ODM MCAs.
It does.
The governor of Nairobi is in court. Have we had any ODM MCA going to try and, well, we had him the first time when he actually came and told us, we even interviewed him. He came and he was trying to bring forth an impeachment motion. What happened? He was prevailed upon
By the powers that
by
be.
the powers that be
In the name of the president.
in the ODM party to drop that motion. He's an ODM MCA for Makongeni ward, and he was trying to bring forth an impeachment motion against the governor of Nairobi.
You know what is of interest? Is this. I would like to understand when this particular philosophy was enacted.
This
And what
philosophy
it-
is like this.
And what it actually states. Because it can't be that there's a, there's a verification to it. If it's something...
It can't be that a philosophy is born after action. It can't be. Then
Well-
you say that we acted this way, but there was a philosophy. It would be very interesting to see
And
if
it considers many other things. For
well,
example, the
if-
relationship between the person and their ranking in the party.
if this philosophy existed, then we should have seen the application of such previously. Because like CT said, this is not the first time we had an ODM government. It's not the first time we and in that case, what would you is there one worse or better?
But it's in Minister for 7. Let's take a look at the weather and continue. All the information.
The weather with Spice
London
FM.
weather is slightly in Nairobi now, 13 degrees. When we found it, and the before and you see a high of 23 in Njeri today. We found the It's supposed to be sunny in Mombasa.
this whole issue of whether you're clean or not depends on how you relate with the certain powers that be.
Who says?
Is rearing its head again. This was the conversation that was happening around the time when leaders were trooping to the former prime minister's office in Upper Hill, and then they were like, all right, so if you go there and you're facing corruption charges, nothing's going to happen to you if you go and bend the knee. If you don't, if you're on the other side, maybe you're following the Tanga guys, you will face the music. And this is sort of like playing out again. Like you told us, Okoth Obado has come out publicly to say, you know what, I'm aligning myself this way. I
The
go
deputy
this,
president,
the
yes.
deputy president, and I'm asking you. Immediately, there's charges against him. Immediately, there's action being taken by the party. And clearly, if a majority of MCAs go with that motion, the case will go to the Senate.
Actually, the utterances and what has happened, it wasn't immediate. He said this a while back. What I'm saying is that if you look at that history, it lends itself to what you're saying. One can find fodder and one can find reason to say, this seems to be happening because of. Now, the reality is that the ODM party is at liberty to conduct itself and its affairs in the manner that is fitting and in accordance with whatever rules and regulation it has. After all, it is a legit party. It has members. It has a way in which it manages its affairs. My problem here is that I don't know where this particular action that was taken fits in. Because if it is, as we are saying, it is being touted as a philosophy, then the question you would ask is, okay.
When?
No, let's start from the very beginning.
What's the threshold
Yes.
for the application of this philosophy?
Philosophy, and is it documented?
And philosophies, can they be born at any one time? Anytime you like.
Yes.
Come up with
These
a new
are questions
philosophy
which,
to suit your action.
if these questions are responded to and it is clear that indeed, apart from just having the powers, it's something that is part and parcel of the way they do things, the questions won't end. More questions will have to be raised.
Yeah.
We'll say, okay, why don't we then look at other members of the party
Yes.
who have had issues as well?
Yeah.
And let us see whether this philosophy applied to them as well.
Yeah. Was there even a move to censure them? Has there been a move like that to censure them? And we are talking about what they have done while in office in terms of abuse of office. Let's even leave alone other things that may not necessarily be about their handling of the office that they've been given. For example, the case against Babu Owino, we can say, okay, so that is his personal life on his personal side and what he's doing. Maybe the party may find this rope to be a little longer. But the ones that are kind of close, like you're saying, Governor Ojamong has a case in court right now.
He does.
Court has already said we are proceeding to full trial because they have a case to answer. It's 8 million shillings.
And this
Maybe it's the amount that is the threshold.
No,
Maybe 8 million shillings is a small amount.
the weight of the
if he
case.
went to about
It's a corruption
10 million and above, he could have faced something.
Or the weight of the case.
But then it all boils down to what does the rule book say? What does the rule book on discipline with regards to such matters within ODM, what does it say? Because that is what should guide these actions. But on the other hand, if the rule book also says that they can from time to time determine what is best for the party, then again we will say that is fine. That is how ODM has determined to handle its affairs, and the rule book says that from time to time they may be determined. So this particular issue could easily fall under that category of things that from time to time are determined so that the party can manage its affairs.
They may have a code of ethics, I'm sure, and that could leave it as grey as possible. You shall conduct yourself in a certain manner to, advance the interest of the party, to ensure that there is nationhood and good governance. All those open-ended statements.
Well,
And the application of it is not really penned. Just like we saw when we were talking to Charles Muga yesterday, we have a law on leadership and integrity. We have a law that talks about how a leader shall conduct themselves, the principles of good governance. We have a law, but that law is so open-ended that, the application of it is...
It's neither here nor there.
That's what I'm saying. And when you leave something with, and it's peppered with such ambiguity, you'll be like, oh, all right, well, it doesn't really matter. But now what it does is that it then is fodder for anybody else who wants to be speculative and say, you know what, then based on what he may have said a couple of years ago, or the manner in which he carried out himself, or the things that he said, he's being punished for it today, because a perfect opportunity then has been presented to punish him in that way because of things that he may have said or alliances that he may have been seen to be participating in. Until and unless you make it very clear how your present actions are either moving away from that belief or moving towards it, you're going to have people speculating.
I'm going to take the view that there's a lot that is happening that we don't know.
Oh, for sure.
That's what I'm going to say. But on the other hand, I have to ask myself, had this case just continued like other cases that involve corruption that we've seen in the past, and ODM had not waded in, would the amount of publicity this case is actually getting, would it get that publicity? In my view, no.
No.
So what has actually happened? A new discussion has been brought into to the fore. It was Obado, charged with corruption. His children have been brought in. That was the discussion then.
Yep.
ODM comes in. Now, the corruption issue isn't even being discussed
It's not-
as much
it's not
as
corruption
It's not even
anymore.
the
It's
corruption
now-
case that's being discussed.
It's
It's
a
now
party.
ODM and the politics.
it's the party.
I mean,
So the party is basically just stealing the limelight here.
So if indeed there is a bigger plan than one which us simple mortals don't particularly understand at this particular moment in time,
Yeah.
then, well, the party again is at liberty to conduct its affairs in the manner it sees fit. But this particular action, unfortunately, raises more questions
Than
than it
answers.
provides answers.
Let's hear from Wilberforce, our caller from Nyamira. Good morning, Wilberforce.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
Long time, I miss you guys.
Yeah.
Hi, Wilberforce.
Long time, Wilberforce. How are you doing?
Very fine city, very fine in Nduh.
What do you think of
I
what
love-
we are seeing now happening in Migori, Wilberforce?
I wonder why you're shocked, Eric.
Uh-huh.
You look so shocked, eh?
You can see his shock.
Are you not shocked?
No, I'm not.
Why?
I'm not, because I've grown up with this thing since I began seeing the light. Someone asked, when was ODM born? It was born in around 2006, 2005. When was this philosophy born, as Nduh is asking? If this philosophy was born with ODM, were you guys here when one Ali Hassan Joe had issues with his certificate?
Yeah.
Did anyone tell him to step aside? Just step aside until we see a verification? The answer is no. Were we here when the molasses plants of Kisumu stories were coming up? I think that was around 2010, some years back. The molasses plant, the story of the molasses plant. Has anyone ever stepped aside? The answer is no. Today, someone is giving a good example of one hospital of Jamong. What I want to say in short is this. There is a song I've always sung since I began calling Spice FM. That Kenyan politics do not have a democratic space. The moment you speak against me, the moment you walk against me, and I am in some office, then what I'll do is to give you the punishment. So what's happening in Migori right now, Obado, as you just narrated a brief history of his relationship with the ODM party leadership and deputy president, to me, what is going on is he's just been shown that there are people who are more powerful than whoever you think. And that is why, if it was a philosophy, my friend, it is just a few months ago when one Anwai Guru was supposed to be judged with corruption. Who were the first senators to defend her in the House? Was there a philosophy by then or not?
Yeah, well,
Someone else mentioned the Babu Winos case.
Listening to you,
pending
then Wilberforce, it sounds like you should be shocked. You should be shocked that there is action being taken now, whereas no action has ever been taken before.
Do you know I'm not being shocked? The reason why I'm not being shocked, it is because we are now seeing it as if we didn't see it before. You said about Moshe Mmoja, and I told you one time when I called you guys that the moment the issue of the handshake came up, and you seem to sing a different tune, that which may not be where the party leader, ODM party leader, is unable to dance. then you told hiyo wimbo toa kwanza, weka hii ingine. That is why everybody ganged against Ferdinand Waititu.
Okay.
That is why you will see that when Anne Waiguru was brought before the Senate, she was defended so hard by the ODM leader. Then, just last week, is it even a week ago? Who spoke about KEMSA and why we should wait for audited report?
Yeah.
The leadership of
Which will
ODM.
take several ages to come. Is it not the ODM party through the Secretary General, Edwin Sifuna?
Can I
Yes,
ask a
why
question,
are
Wilberforce? Can I ask a
Yes.
question? What you're saying
Yes,
is
it is.
truly interesting, but does it therefore mean does it mean therefore that if these individuals, as you say, were defended, did they not then have a case to answer? Because you can't defend something that doesn't require a response, can you?
No, you can't, of course, defend something without a response. The answer is they should be having, or they should be having cases to answer. That's what I'm saying is, City,
Yes.
I'm only against the double standard that is being played by the ODM party
That's the
through what they are now calling a philosophy.
But you see, we are asking that, is it really a double standard? Maybe it is a philosophy. Maybe it is documented. Maybe,
It's a philosophy that we had with last
maybe
week.
there is a code of ethics that gives them room to do that. By the way, they are within their rights to conduct their affairs as they see fit. We just don't have information, or we don't have evidence of the existence of these things. But
There are
the
maybes.
yes,
No, City,
yes.
City, how many maybes have you said?
I've just begun actually.
Okay, there are many more.
Maybe
to
he's
come.
yet
There
to
are
finish.
many more maybes to come.
Yeah.
The answer is if something is a right,
Yeah.
you are right, Article 24 of the Constitution, your right should not infringe over my right.
Twen-
This idea of-
All right, we've lost it. Let's take a break anyway. 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's look at what's happening on the road and continue this conversation. What is it that we are seeing with the ODM party? Not just ODM. So we use the ODM today as the example. We haven't seen any action from the or white any party on any that we see. Good morning. It's a situation in this kind of serious conversation. I think when we come out of this break, we will be speaking to an independent that is the voice of ODM.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Just train your legs, just look at the and another beautiful of the Michelle presentation. Some of us will take a pic on this it's affecting traffic another vehicle and the traffic is so loud, it's trending today, and that's a
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
24 minutes to 8 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Comments as well on social media this morning. Abu Jamal Dennis says, Wakenya ni wale wale. If ODM had kept mum about Obado's case, Kenyans could have asked what the party is doing. Now, ODM have chosen to act. Kenyans are asking, why the double standards? Surely, Kenya is the other term for impunity.
Interesting.
Yeah?
Very interesting statement.
Yeah.
It's a good observation.
So if no action, damned if you do, damned if you... The problem is that you appear to be taking selective action. That is where the issue is, right? If it's not that, then why act on this and not act on the other? George Oleg says, today you are putting up a defense for Governor Obado. Make the debate constructive by simply lobbying for the arraignment of any other tainted ODM leader. This way you'll not be getting political in the fight against corruption. We should not be churning out the political events and strings.
Okay. He has prescribed. We have heard.
Yeah, it's okay.
But that's exactly what we're doing.
That's exactly what we said. And that's what
we're
I'm saying.
saying. Action against Obado,
everybody.
action against Ojamong. Ojamong's
Everybody.
case is still ongoing. Take action against that as well.
And
that's-
actually, while you're at it, why don't you go to the counties and ask yourself about other officers or political officials who may have been caught up in the same dragnet?
If the purge is authentic, the purge should affect everybody, no matter how big, no matter how small. When anybody's name or image has been tainted with mismanagement of funds, mismanagement of office.
Careful, we are prescribing here.
No. And let me be prescriptive. And let me be absolutely prescriptive. If you're saying that this is purely because this individual has gone against whatever philosophy of misconduct is present in the party, then it should be that way for everybody.
You know, since we don't know, the philosophy, as Eric had mentioned, may have a threshold.
On certain people within the party.
And the thing is, in the absence of that sort of documentation, well, let's continue speculating.
No. You know, if there is indeed a threshold, then we should also question that. Because look, is there a threshold in the law about corruption? So why would a party then go ahead and come up with its own threshold that is outside of what the law prescribes?
Because at the end of the day, who's going to rule on that corruption in public office? It's not the party.
You see,
it's the state.
it is one thing if it is within a committee, within a party, and the matter is being discussed. It's another thing if it has come to the attention of the law of the country and is being addressed in a court of different. Could be the same issue. But that particular political party will have the leeway to determine the outcome of that issue based on its rules and regulations. That's why. So, again, until and unless I actually see it, because it may very well exist and I don't know, all I can do is juxtapose. I can throw an innuendo here.
Yeah.
I can speculate. That's the best I can do under the circumstances. But what is for sure is that even what they have done, if we were to believe that it was the best of intentions, one could argue that this is a political party that believes that they should not tolerate this sort of thing. Unfortunately, there are other examples of individuals who belong to the same party who unfortunately have not had this particular attention applied to them. That is where now the discussion becomes.
That's why it becomes, a point of conversation, because this is a party that is a national party. This is a party that says it stands for social justice. It stands for fight against corruption. It stands for good governance. So when there's an issue that points to mismanagement of an office, abuse of office by somebody who's an elected high official of your party, because a governor is a very senior official of a party. So a senior official of a party is accused of corruption in one court and other issues surrounding them, and then you say, all right, so we're going to ask our members to consider if there'd be grounds to impeach him. Another governor is accused of abuse of office. Same, the charge sheet does not say, this one is less of abuse of less office. No,
Yeah.
it is abuse of office, abuse of
Period.
office.
Doesn't matter what
Period.
position you
And
hold.
it's corruption. You're appearing before the same anti-corruption court. You have appeared before the same anti-corruption court, allegations against your management of affairs in your county. Why would the party not take action? And that's why I said, I don't want to go into the Babu Owino case, because you can say Babu Owino case, it's not abuse of office, whatever. It's about personal conduct. They could come up with some other arguments. Like when we interviewed Edwin Sifuna, he told us it's a whole different ballgame. This is direct conduct within office, and it has an impact on the people that you represent, who include members of ODM who voted for you.
As a president, it's going to be interesting.
Quite. We'd like to know what you think about this. 0719-012-600. Also, you can post your comments on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We can see that those who are watching us on YouTube are saying that there's an issue with the audio today. Our technicians are working on that. You can tune in to the Facebook or the Twitter live streams, or www.spicefm.co.ke. So 0719-012-600. What is your opinion on what's happening in the party? Not just in ODM, but as a threshold. Should this just be applied across board? Should it be just the automatic thing? The same way Justice Mombegogi ruled, if you come before a court of law, if you are charged with corruption, the next thing we expect you to do is
Vacate.
do not access office. I cannot rule that you vacate office because I don't have the powers, but I can rule that you do not access office. Now, those people who have influence over getting you out of office, or even the people who have been charged themselves, just step aside.
It would be interesting to see then what happens after this. If this philosophy, let's just assume that it was born, in the recent past. It will be very interesting to see, because what happens after this, and anybody else's name who would be mentioned in cases of corruption or allegations of misconduct within office, which is then against the state. It would be very interesting to see what the stance would be against such individuals. Because if this sets precedent, because we've not seen anything like this before, we've not seen anything like this before in the country by any political party in the manner in which it's being carried out now, right? Now, if that is the stance that party has taken, anybody else who comes after this, because I don't think corruption is going to end with Obado, right? Anybody who comes,
Corruption accusations
will end with this. The allegations and accusations, these are not the last that will happen, right? It will be very interesting to see what is then going to happen in the future with anybody else's name who is mentioned, anybody against who allegations are going to have been made, or against who charges are going to be brought up. I would be very interested to see what kind of action is going to be taken against such individuals.
Bernard Otieno is calling in from Oyugis in Homer Bay. Good morning, Bernard.
Good morning to
Bernard, how is Oyugis today?
it's fine.
Atukuski poa.
Yes.
All right. What do you think about what's happening now? What's your opinion on the conversation we're having?
According to the politics of Kenya, I think the alien is doing their part because
There's an issue with your line. There's an issue with your line, Bernard. Let's see if we can get you on a clearer line. Try calling on a clearer line and see if we can just put you on air. That's Bernard Otieno calling in from Oyugis. And we have our friend Yegon. Yegon, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Eric.
How are you? How is Matu?
Matu iko salama though. I'm on my way to Embu.
Boss, you said you'll be there for 3 weeks.
Yes, when you were calling me last time yesterday, I was taking someone to Embu.
Okay.
And this morning we have a blessing. Anyway, back
All
to
right.
the topic.
Back to the issue.
Yes, so the issue being taken by ODM, I support it. But it should not be applied as in a double standard, but to all the individuals at the same level. Because when the party takes over the issue of corruption matters or make its own elected leaders in their party
Yep.
to work for the people, that will at least help the party to help the party in being in the next re-election. That is, the people will see that this party is loyal to the people. It serves the people. It serves the people. So whenever the party keeps silent on it, now hapo ndio unasikia jama imekufa, jama ni iko na corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Thank you, Egon.
Thank
Honorable Shakil Shabir, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. This is the Kisumu East MP.
Yes, I am one of the founder members of the ODM party.
But now you're an independent MP.
Yes,
Hmm?
that is the point. The issue is that the party itself is based upon some sort of philosophy. That philosophy at the moment is based much upon what is the philosophy around the leader Raila Odinga.
Mm-hmm. Explain that. What do you mean?
You see, look, where do we start from? I was a member of LDP.
Mm-hmm.
I was a member then Kanu.
Swallowed
then
you?
when Raila moved, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved to there was NDP, there was LDP.
Yeah.
And we all moved where with the leader.
Yep.
So I think one of the basic things that we have as a party, in Kenya parties, is they're led by a person, not by a philosophy. So the person's philosophy is the one that now depends on the philosophy of the party. I'm talking about, let's say, Labour Party in the UK, the Liberal Party in the UK, the Conservative Party in the UK. They are not led by one person. They are led by
the system.
A set procedure, that system. Until that system is put into place, and it is now beyond the person, then that party can say, look, then that party starts working within certain steps and rules.
So are you saying that as a founder member of ODM, you're not aware of this standalone philosophy?
Huh?
You're not aware of a standalone philosophy that could be getting applied here?
The idea, the principles, the ideas are all there. Unfortunately, the ODM as the party is working on the advice, on the guidance of one person or two people, or three people. There's a supreme leader. Do you understand me?
Yep.
Yep.
So now, the supreme leader cannot be an angel. So when you're now trying to justify the party with the supreme leader, are you dealing with ODM or are you dealing with Raila Odinga?
Let me ask the question, Mheshimiwa.
Yes.
Is the political party and the officials, are they independent of the political leader?
You see, there is a question, isn't it? Now, when you're talking about Obado and you're talking about Ojamang and you're talking about others, as I said, I'm now an independent. I was forced to become an independent. I may still profess certain allegiances to a particular way, but I may not profess that totally as to the ODM party as such, because I'm no longer a member. Now, one of the major issues that we came, and when I was made the mayor of Kisumu initially, was to show that we as the ODM, we as a party of opposition, can run a government. Now, I think that is basically the difference. When now we are talking about corruption, the corruption that we are talking about has to be dealt with on different levels. And I agree with what you're saying, absolutely. You must have one slide rule that will decide as to whether the party is going to take action or not. I disagree that people should have been called to Nairobi to be given the way ahead. Yes, I disagree with that. But unfortunately, sometimes this is what's happening because you have so much going on at local level that doesn't work. And if the party is now trying to sort itself out, which I hope they do, they're still one of the strongest parties in the country. You see what I'm trying to say? And then you see one of the other issues is there's no party, no Jubilee, no Wiper, none of these parties have an infrastructure. None of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you see, if you're talking about people, you're talking about the ANC. When you know the leader of the ANC party had a case on corruption, which has never been finalized. But we hear that now he's now one of the soldiers to fight corruption. So I think what we're doing is we all need to fight the corruption.
How do we ensure that our political parties then have this sort of philosophy that we are saying we are not clear what the philosophy is, or have a certain stand?
We as individual leaders need to put our by way of our the way we behave ourselves. Now I think somebody has to call a spade a spade. What ODM should be saying, those people who are corrupt, we're not going to give you the nomination coming.
Yeah.
Yeah? And there's so many cases of this issue. So I think as far as I think it's unfair to attack ODM as one. We want to go and talk about Jubilee or what happened with our friend YT2.
Yep.
Then we want to talk about Jubilee, what's happening with Sonko.
Yep.
Now, you put it in perspective.
Oh, Jubilee.
You're jumping only on ODM. And as I said, I firstly said that I'm in no position to protect ODM, to protect ODM or to answer for ODM because I'm not in ODM, unfortunately.
Well, that's the thing. From where we're looking at it at the same time, whether it's ODM, whether it's Jubilee, whether it's any party in the country, whether it's any political movement, if they're members of your party who seem to be or have been accused of, there's certain allegations against them. I mean, where I'm coming from is that it should be very clear where the party stands on this. And it should not be that there's some sacred cows within said party that would not get a lashing or any kind of censure because of their position, but that everybody is operating.
Hello, I interrupt you. Hello.
We can still hear you.
Hello.
This is the situation at 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. The conversation continues with the team.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Right, so the conversation continues on our social media platforms as well. There's a comment there, somebody saying, what's your stand as a situation room on this particular matter? You sound like you are sympathetic to Okoth Obado.
Sound. Okay.
Every case has its own merit, remember. This is what the person says. Every case has its own merit. Remember, he is also answering to another criminal case in court.
You know, political philosophy is also known as political theory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And one of the things that you study when you're studying this is, apart from politics, you study liberty, justice, rights. Now, the moment you introduce, because these are the pillars upon which, should you say, the statutes that govern parties are erected. So they have to be questioned from time to time.
Yeah.
If you bring in the discussion, we didn't bring the discussion on philosophy, it was brought to us. So all we're doing is ensuring that we ask, tell us a little more about this philosophy.
Yeah.
And you know what? This move, let's just be very clear about this. This move is touted to be historical. The first in history.
It is. It's never happened.
Never happened in this country.
Ever,
Never happened in this country
And
by
which
another
country
party.
Where has it happened?
So
And
it cannot be applied retrogressively.
No.
What's that word?
Precedence, Baba.
Yeah.
Precedence setting.
But we
It
can't
has
go
set.
back. So now, because we are
So
doing
it's kind of like
now,
what we were speaking last week about, you know, the constitution in a certain country having come into place, or certain laws having come into place where you already have a sitting president, right? So then that term will not be counted as having been served. So it's essentially what we're saying is that this precedent that has been set, anything before that will not have been taken into consideration. However, moving forward, with this one, anything that should come after this, that's what I was saying. Very interested to see what will happen in the future, because corruption allegations and corruption accusations will not stop with this. Right? So moving forward, if it is precedent setting, then you should see each and every individual for which an allegation or accusation has been made should also be privy to this same kind of treatment.
You see, the problem with the discussion such as the one we're having is every time you mention ODM, someone hears Raila.
Yeah, and then the emotions go through the roof.
And you mentioned ODM. Okay?
But somebody has heard.
That's what they hear, Raila. Yes. And you've mentioned
But even
ODM.
Shakil Shabir just told us. I mean, it's
the character, it's
this
the individual.
party is more of Raila.
All
And that's why
out.
he's saying he moved. When he was Kisumu mayor, they were in NDP, they went to LDP, they went to ODM. I mean, it's following where Raila goes. Just the same thing. If you look at today's page 5 of The Nation, there's a photo there of two MPs. And this is Sudi and just look at the caption. Page 5.
Sudi and this Didmas Barasa.
Didmas Barasa. Read what Sudi is quoted as saying.
He says, even if he forms a party called Sufuria,
They will follow William Ruto wherever he goes, even if he forms a party called Sufuria. So whatever that party, even if you come and give it the Progressive National
Right.
This is the Nduh Okoh Third Way Alliance. This is a situation room. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it up.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Mombasa Road on Thika Road is what it's looking terrible today, guys. And
Traffic.
yes, already starting to stop from as early as 6:15 this morning. And we have a couple of accidents in Mombasa Road and a couple also why today. So getting into the CBD but this one just Thursday on the road today. Other
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 2.5 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Shortly, we'll switch gears in the conversation and start talking about supporting innovation and businesses in the country. Of course, looking at what we were discussing last week, the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, KCJF. This is a UK-funded program that is looking at helping innovative businesses thrive in this country. We'll be speaking to the Deputy UK High Commissioner in the country. But before we do that, let's hear from Philip in Laikipia, who has burning thoughts to say on this particular issue that we were discussing in the last hour. Philip, good morning.
Morning to you, Erika.
How are you today?
Habari ya Indu and City.
Mzuri sana.
We are well, thank you.
Yeah. Sasa leo acha nisungumze kwa Kiswahili, Eric. Jambo moja
Tafadhali.
ambalo mimi you know what? These political parties are special purpose vehicles. And if anybody doesn't fit to those purposes or those special purposes, unaona anakuwa na shida, anakuwa na wakati mgumu sana kutokana na mahali ama eneo ambalo analitoka. Kwa issue ya bado nafikiria ODM as a party applying double standard na wanafanya they have selective justice, because mmetoa mifano mingi ya watu ambao wako na kasfa za ufisadi, na tunaona ODM kama chama akija chukua hatua zozote za kinidhamu. Hata hivyo juzi niliona chama cha ODM kikijaribu kikileta nini mpya ya nidhamu, disciplinary committee walichaguliwa, na nikaona watu wazuri, mawakili wazuri walichaguliwa kwenye kamati ile. Lakini sasa tatizo ni kwamba ni kwa nini wawe na selective justice katika chama? Na mbili najua baada anapitia wakati mgumu, sababu he's not been dancing to the tune of the ODM party leader Raila Odinga. Hilo ndio tatizo. But what we are asking going forward, ODM ni chama ambacho ni chama kikubwa, ni chama chenye heshima yake, kinahitaji pia kuonyesha ya kwamba kina stahili kupewa ile heshima ambayo kinapewa. Lakini kinapofanya hivyo, unajua hili ni swala la kisiasa, na jambo ambalo liko kotini, koti haijaamua iseme bado ana makosa ama hana. Wao wameanza kuchukua hatua. Hii nafikiria wanataka kuingilia ama wanataka kuinfluence hata kesi ambayo iko kotini.
Can I ask a question?
Langu kwa chama.
Naomba niulize swali tafadhali.
Uliza, Eric.
Huyu ni City.
Oh, City uliza.
Do you know of any political party that allows its members to just dance to any tune that they see fit?
Sorry?
Do you know of any political party that allows any of its members to just dance to any tune that they see fit? You said Obado was not dancing to the tune that was probably being played by ODM, and I'm asking, is there any political party that tolerates their members just doing what they see fit?
There is. Okay, just look at Jubilee. What is this guy, this old man, the dominated MP of the old, si alikuwa na kampenia nini wa ODM, na chama ikikuchukua hatua yoyote. So that's what we call democracy. But when we have selective democracies in parties, ndio unaona matatizo haya yanakuja. Kuna mifano mingi, and I hope you are not asking that because you come from that other place. So
actually, to respond to your question, I do not come from Migori, but I am actually looking at what has happened within Jubilee. That's really the benchmark. And there Yes, go ahead, please.
I think there are two issues here that we need to look at, Philip. One, it's a party whipping its members to live within the ideals of the party. All right? And that is, if you go against what the party stands for, especially what has been universally agreed that this is the direction of the party, then you shall be censured or you shall be called by the party and put to task over that. On the other hand, if it is something that is very well known, this is a corruption matter, this is a criminal matter, this is something that goes against the laws of the land, now that is totally different. I mean, this is something that is a no-brainer.
Okay, now do you want to tell me ODM imekuja na hizo measures hizi ama it has been there?
Nobody knows, and that's what we're saying needs to be made clear. Because once that is made clear, then it helps you to see what could be coming in the future, then how you'll be able to judge what has happened previously, or in this case, not happened previously. And that's what we're saying. Because we don't know, that's why we're very careful about what we say in terms of now moving forward. It would be interesting to see if there was a philosophy before, or if this is something that came up as a result of this case. But because we don't know how long this philosophy has been in place, then you're not able to make that judgment. You can only hope and speculate.
Now, Nduh.
Yes.
Let me ask you guys, Then the public, are this question fit to be asked in the public opinion, or you should find somebody who is within the ODM or one of the leaders from the ODM party to tell us whether this thing started with the Obado and it will end with him, or it is something that will be there?
I think it is both.
Now going forward.
I think it is both. I think that it is very important for people to weigh in on something like this.
You know, ODM has both leaders and members.
Yes. It's not just leaders that make up ODM.
Okay, one thing. Let me say this, and it is an open secret. ODM is Raila Odinga, and Raila Odinga is ODM. Full stop. We don't need to beat about the bush or what has here and there. What I can say,
Do you mind terribly if we take issue with that statement?
Sorry?
I'm saying, do you mind if we differ with you on that particular statement? When you say we all know, we don't all know. There are people who have that belief, and they will say they can justify the belief, but we are of the view that our political structures as we know them is that the leadership of political parties tend to be also synonymous with the party. That is what we said. So we are not totally disagreeing with you, but we're saying from what we see of our political parties, the political leadership of any party in this country, with the exception, we made 3 exceptions: the ANC party, Ford Kenya party, and now with
we have Third Way Alliance.
Third Way Allowance. Well, in the absence of that, major political parties, the leader and the party are synonymous. We are in agreement there.
Now you see, City. Now I think I need to agree with the first. I don't know whether it was a caller or somebody, a fan who contributed that who asked you to just declare your position in this matter, because when we bring this thing out as this is a national radio station, we need to be very neutral and. Okay, it's okay. Let me say that I agree. If you differ with me, it's okay. Kila mtu akona haki ya kufanya ama ya kuzungumza bila anavyotaka kuzungumza ama
Please tell me about my absence of neutrality. My absence of neutrality. Where have I shown a strong bias?
A strong bias. Okay. City is like when we mostly wakati tunazungumza jambo la kisiasa na ama unapotoa uchamuzi wako, wakati mwingine unaonekana kuwa unalalia upande fulani unaegemea upande fulani kulingana na vile labda umetazama mtazamo wako, lakini pia watu unakuwa na mitazamo tofauti. Naheshimu mtazamo wako, wewe pia uheshimu mtazamo wangu na mitazamo ya watu wengine ambao watapiga simu kutoa maoni yao. Nafikiria that's what I can say.
That's the essence of a conversation. That right there, Philip, is the essence of a conversation. That you shall have divergent opinions. Your opinion, just by listening to you, someone could think you are egemering to a certain mrengo, and someone else may think, well, you are being neutral.
Na huo ndio uhuru, unajua Eric, huo ndio uhuru sababu
kabisa.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
okay,
Philip.
Asante.
Have a great day.
Unajua ni umekuwa ukisema tunawasikiza na Nyuki tunawasikiza 90.9.
90.9 the Njeri frequency.
Sema hiyo.
Asante sana. Have a good day, Philip.
You too.
It's a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll shift gears now and talk about funding, local businesses and local innovation. Looking at this project by the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, KCJF, we spoke with the founder and CEO of IGOV, who's also the team leader for the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, Ronnie Osumba, last week, and he was telling us about the work that they were doing. Now we look at the funding and the critical aid to development. Good morning. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Before we move into that conversation, let's take a look at what's happening skywards, the weather.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
A little bit more in Nairobi at 16 degrees. We'll go to highs of 24 today. Partly cloudy conditions for most parts of today. In Njeri at 14 degrees, it's partly cloudy. Highs of 23 and lows of 12. Nakuru, sunny conditions at 14. It'll change later, though, into cloudy and rainy conditions, going to high of 23 and lows of 13. It's mostly sunny in Eldoret at 14 degrees. Highs of 21 and lows of 12, and a chance of rain and thunderstorms later on. It'll also be quite wet in Kisumu at 27, high and lows of 19. Currently sunny conditions at 21 degrees. Sunny conditions in Kakamega at 18 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 15, and a chance of rain later in the day. Mombasa is mostly sunny at 23, highs of 28 and lows of 22, and those sunny conditions will continue throughout today. Malindi also no rain today. Highs of 28 and lows of 24. Kampala is partly cloudy at 19, highs of 27 and lows of 28. In Dar es Salaam, the fog has returned. It's partially foggy at 23, highs of 31 and lows of 22. Johannesburg at 9 degrees is cloudy this morning, only partly cloudy conditions later on with highs of 22 and coming down to lows of 8. And we finish for now in Lagos, where it's mostly cloudy at 25. The rain will make a debut later with highs of 29 and lows of 24.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, it's now 8:15. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Let's now talk about funding, critical aid to development, and what we see. So this program that we discussed last week, the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, and the kind of work that it was doing around the country, well, that it's been doing around the country, looking at how to fund innovations in the country, looking at how to help to grow initiatives that are actually making a difference. So just to remind you what Ronnie Osumba told us, that they launched a business innovation challenge to competitively select up to 5 initiatives, and the winners are to receive a grant funding and technical assistance of up to £100,000 each. The fund targeted initiatives that are post proof of concept, innovative, scalable, sustainable, and that have demonstrated substantial impact. And those that entered the business innovation challenge were many, according to what we heard, and they went through a rigorous process of vetting, and then the winners were announced through a show that was aired on KTN Home. Mm-hmm. This fund is supported by the UK government, and let's now speak to the Deputy High Commissioner in the British High Commission in Kenya. This is Julius Cord. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and great to be with you today.
Welcome to the Situation Room. If you were here, we'd have told you welcome to the hot seat, but we hope that it's warm enough wherever you are. Asante sana, just to take us back to what we were talking about, the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund and the reason why the UK government decided to support this particular initiative. Just tell us about that.
So the UK has a very modern partnership with Kenya, very deep, strong business links. And we have a history of supporting innovation here. We were one of the supporters of M-Pesa very, very early on, 20 years ago. And what we wanted to do was to take that to a new level. And why this is so important is because employment and job creation is probably the top challenge facing the country. Many people are saying that. So about 1 million young Kenyans enter the workforce each year, and perhaps 15%, something like that, get a formal job. That's become even tougher during this economic challenge with COVID. So the idea here is, as Ronnie was talking to you, the idea is very simple. This is about tapping the energy and the entrepreneurship of Kenyans, particularly youth, really to catalyze their businesses, to develop new business models, to try new technologies. And the key thing is that it's about job creation. And we really want to give Kenyans the opportunity and choices to go forward. So through the Jobs Fund, we support firms that are showing that it's the small firms that are showing creation for a lot of job creation. So that's what it's about. It's about, as you said, it's about grants and mentoring, and really to help those firms try technologies, try new business approaches, and ultimately to create a lot of jobs.
Why has this interest been taken, if I may ask? Why are you looking at these sectors with such great interest?
It's because we look at the analysis like lots of others do, and we see all these young people coming onto the job market each year. And what's great about Kenya is there's this real aspiration culture. So for us, it's trying to tap all that spirit and that entrepreneurial culture, and to create the jobs so that all these people who are coming into the job market, they can make the most of themselves in their lives.
May I ask, why 4 years? It's supposed to be a 4-year program. Why not 3? Why not 6? Why not 10?
It's a very good question. So we've been supporting Kenya on innovation and entrepreneurship for 20 years. As I said, we worked with Safaricom way back on the M-Pesa program. So this is something that we've been doing for a long time. But you know, the world changes. So each time we think of a program, we think about what's the right time frame for this one. And so we went for 4. You're right. It could have been 3. It could have been 5. But we thought that 4 was the appropriate time to test it, to push it, and if it works, to scale it, and also to adapt it as we find new conditions.
I still don't actually understand. What is it about the 4 years? You get the funding, and every year you are refunded depending on your meeting targets that are set. So what do you expect to see after 4 years?
So no, it's a terrific question. So what we're doing is we're providing rounds of financing for firms through this very competitive process. So, you know, each round we have about 850 applicants, and we select 5. So at the end of this, what we want is, through the support that we're providing to those individual firms, we're expecting those firms to grow and create large numbers of jobs. And we choose sectors that are specifically job-creating sectors. So we want those firms to grow, and we want those jobs to be created. So that, and for these are sort of from tens to hundreds to thousands of jobs. To me, the key thing actually is that this is about demonstration. So once these firms have tried new technologies, and we can talk about some of those, but as they're aggregating markets, as they're trying new business models, those are being seen frankly, through our partnership with KTN and Standard Group. Many more people are seeing those, and they're thinking, I can try that in my sector. So people from fruit are trying the same kinds of things that people have tried in milk to scale their business and to create the jobs. So that's the approach. After 4 years, we'll see jobs, we'll see firms growing, and we'll see this demonstration effect so that other people can pick up the ideas.
Coming off the back of what you just said, some of the businesses that would have been selected is there a certain path that they follow? I mean, a lot of buzzwords jump out at us, like sustainability, sustainable business,
social enterprise.
Exactly, social enterprise. So is this the direction that the funding then would take when you're looking at some of these businesses?
So that's exactly right. It's, as you know, Kenya is incredibly diverse. So what we wanted to do was to capture a couple of things. We wanted to identify firms where they were early in their cycle, but they had essentially a performance record. But they had a new idea that they wanted to test, and that wouldn't be doable under normal circumstances. So they come to us and they say, we really want to try this new idea, this new business model. We think it'll create a load of jobs. So that's one set. And then the other set is really about trying something, really quite new, very early stage, very innovative, and where there isn't quite that record. And we try and have a balance. We try and have a portfolio of some of those slightly more advanced firms and some of these really, really new startups.
How about the ones that you think have done very well, but maybe they just, for one reason or the other, because you had to pick 5, the number 6 company, for instance, it was a very good idea. It still requires that support. What kind of help can you get them in getting that support that they need? Because by the time you've narrowed them down from 800 applications, and somebody has come to the top 10, but they just did not get to be among the top 5 that win this money, but they still require the kind of support that you're offering. What do you do with those?
This is a great question because, as you say, it's really tough. It's really tough. 850 down to 10, down to 5. And this was the hardest thing that we found, our team found in selecting the ideas, getting it down from 800 down to that top 10. And then the judges, and a public thank you to the judges. They had such a tough job of choosing the 10 to the 5. So they get the profile through the program. The 10 are all highlighted. We don't support them in the intense way, but what we do is we encourage them, the ones who didn't quite make it into the top 5, but also all those other ones. All entrepreneurs know that you have to keep trying, you have to refine your idea, you have to innovate. And what was really exciting for this round is one of the winners was one of the ones that hadn't made it last time, but they had continued to develop their work, they continued to refine the idea, and they'd come back and pitched. And this time they'd come back into the top 5. So we support them and we give them profile so that they can continue, because it's very tough if you're number 6, out of the top 5, or you're number 11 out of the top 10. So we continue to encourage people to keep applying.
So, what would be of benefit to the aid programs themselves, as opposed to the individual companies who are or organizations who are getting this much needed critical funding? Of what benefit is it to the UK government? Of what benefit is it to the organizations that are helping in this manner?
So this is a development program. So what we're very keen is to support investment, jobs, and growth here in Kenya. And to me, the key word is in the title of the program, the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund. It's the catalytic bit. So we can support 5 firms each round, and we can more widely support the others. But the key thing is that they're testing innovation. To me, that you don't just scale up the jobs in that particular firm, but you promote, you showcase what they're doing. So to give you one example, there's a terrific firm that we funded in the last round, Savannah Circuit. They're based in West Pokot. They're a real innovation firm, engineering, but they focus on the dairy sector at the moment. They 3D print some of their components. They have solar-powered coolers on the back of boda-bodas that go around to farmers and they collect the milk. And what's amazing about that is that there's much more loss, the farmer gets much more income, and they've really built a much bigger market in that area of West Pokot. Now, the interesting thing about that is, so they're doing terrifically well, but that same approach could be applied to fish, it can be applied to vaccines. So you have these spillover effects that you can see. So now we're very early in that process, but that's the kind of example that we see of. It's not just a jobs fund for that firm, it's a catalytic jobs fund, that has a much wider impact across the country.
What are the key factors that you looked into when you are vetting and determining who would actually benefit from this funding?
So some of the key criteria that we've advertised is it's got to be impactful, it's got to be innovative. We're very much looking at sustainability. When the judges look at this, these are such seasoned people. When you look at people like Darshan Chandaria and his whole team, they're such seasoned people. They look at the viability of the business as well. And for us, ultimately, it comes down: is this a viable proposition, and is it going to create a lot of jobs? Those were the main things we looked out for.
What about the composition of the ownership of that particular setup? What were you looking at?
So we're looking for young Kenyan entrepreneurs. We made a huge effort to promote this around the country. So as I was saying, in the last round we had successful bids from West Pokot. We had 10 Senses, a fantastic firm that's largely operational at the coast, looking at macadamia and cashew nuts. This time round, we have teams up in Turkana, fish processing. So we put a huge amount of effort into going across the country to encourage the bids, because again, as you guys know, that entrepreneurial spirit is across the country, and we wanted to make sure that we were going as wide as we could go to encourage those small firms to bid in.
That's very laudable, but what if, for instance, the founder was a non-Kenyan, and currently when you are vetting, the people who are running it were Kenyan, would they also qualify for consideration?
So they do, yep, they do. The key thing for us is that it's going to create jobs here in Kenya. So as you'll see from the winners, there are non-Kenyans there, but the majority of them are Kenyans, which you'd expect.
Why I ask the question is because I think what you're doing falls in the category of trying to assist startups. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Now,
no, that's correct. Yeah,
yes,
here in Kenya.
Yes, here in Kenya. But the history of startups in this country are not. The history isn't really positive in terms of the sort of funding that locals, as in Kenyans, indigenous Kenyans, get. Do you think that this is because the Kenyans themselves did not meet the threshold for innovation that is required internationally, or do you think that perhaps there was because a perceived element of bias as to who gets it? If I can give you the figures that have been touted since 2018, we are told that 90% of, this according to the financial analysts, 90% of the funding in East Africa have expatriate founders. Nothing wrong with that. 65% of Kenyan startup founders are American. Again, nothing wrong with that. But are we saying, therefore, that what you are trying to do is trying to actually bring out what may genuinely exist among Kenyans, that spirit of entrepreneurship that you've mentioned?
So I'm interested in the source of the numbers. They sound high to me. I mean, when you look around, many of the that might be in a particular sector, but when you look around, most of the startups that I see are Kenyan, and certainly most of the applicants we get are from Kenyan small businesses, and most of the winners are from Kenyan small businesses. So I think what we're trying to do here is to overcome exactly that financial challenge you're talking about. When you look at the constraints, so many companies are facing cash flow constraints, particularly now because of COVID. But even before, they were looking at sort of real pressures. It's probably the number one barrier to starting a business and growing your business is you can't get that. So what we're trying to do is to exactly support that early stage innovation, and to support Kenyan small firms to grow and to create jobs.
Actually, my source was the Standard newspaper on Tuesday, February the 11th, 2020.
But I would just go behind the numbers, and because 65% from America, that just sounds very high. So I would. It's certainly not the kinds of numbers we're seeing. When we look at our applicants, these are mostly Kenyan small firms who are applying, and mostly Kenyan small firms who are winning the competition.
Why do you think that's the issue? Because we look at businesses and the reasons why they've stagnated, whether these are startups, whether these are businesses that have been, in existence for 5-10 years, whatever the case may be. And the critical issue that they often slip over is funding. When we talk about support or aid that has come in, very rarely is it capacity building or training on soft skills or things like that. Really, the aid comes in form of funding. Why is it that aid, or rather that funding, is such a problem then when it comes to businesses, from your perspective?
So I think it's a terrific question, and frankly, it's one we're still grappling with. So in the Catalytic Jobs Fund, we're very clear that our offer to firms is about funding, but it's also about that technical support, and that's why we keep supporting these firms through, because many of them it's a funding problem, but many of them it's also about how do you grow your business? What kind of environmental regulations do you need to comply with? Whatever it might be, what's the best way to handle staffing issues? So there's a whole set of issues as you begin to grow as a business that you need to deal with. And that's exactly the kind of mentoring that we provide through this. And more widely is increasingly out there. So we have a sort of sister program that particularly looks at tech issues. And for that, it's almost all about mentoring and networking and for colleagues sharing ideas. Because there's no one who can help you more than somebody who's grappling with the same problem but has overcome it. So it's partly about mentoring, and it's partly about people really sharing their challenges and sharing their solutions together. So that's another thing we're doing, but more on the digital side. But I agree with the premise of your question, that a lot of this is also about mentoring as much as about finance.
So if you look at that, the kind of program that you're supporting, the KCJF and other organizations, other donor organizations that are also operating in the country, running various programs. So, for example, UNESCO has some programs that it's running and supporting the government. The government itself, under the Ministry of ICT, Youth and Innovation, is running some programs. The Youth Enterprise Development Fund is also running some programs in terms of just building the capacity of entrepreneurs in innovation and just managing businesses. Don't you feel like there's too many organizations doing too many different things in the same sphere instead of coming together to find a way of commonality?
So I think so many people are involved because they see the analysis that you and I see, which is around the scale of the challenge and getting jobs for this, the million young people who come onto the workforce each year. So I think that's why there's so much interest in this kind of support. I totally agree with you that this could probably be coordinated better, and I think that's something that we all need to look at. What I would say is that I think people are beginning to do that much more, and when you're not quite sure what works best, then you try a whole load of different things, and as things work, then you scale those and you bring all those together. And the ones that haven't worked, you say, okay, we tried it, it didn't quite work, and we'll do something different. So you're right, the National Treasury is doing this, the Ministry of ICT. We work very closely with CS Betty Minor in the Ministry of Industry and Trade. So there's a whole set that people are trying to coordinate across this. And one of our support to government with CS Minor is exactly about bringing, it's actually called the Situation Room as well, but it's bringing businesses together so that they can talk directly, collectively to the ministry.
Well, the other issue is, I think Nduh had even alluded to that, what's in it for the UK government, for instance. When you come and you're offering this kind of money to support, and you're not even asking for a stake in the businesses that win, it's just offering money and supporting the organizations. Somebody would always ask, there's nothing like a free lunch. Are we to trust that the UK is basically just funding these organizations with no other intention?
So this is an aid program, and on this one, there's not some UK national interest behind it. We are as we have been for a long time, we're a very strategic partnership for Kenya. We have a deep relationship on the economic side. So our only interest is that Kenya succeeds, and we think that one of the, it's been growing so fast over recent years. Poverty's been coming down. That's our interest in this. Is that Kenya continues to grow and expand, and this is what modern partnership's about.
What would it take to have a mushrooming of what you've done? Because they're often said, in development fields, that's just it, that development begets development, especially when you're looking now at funding that can be made available for certain, businesses, sustainable in that. So now when you look at sustainability, it would mean that maybe you're looking at a place whereby these homegrown businesses that are now being given this much needed injection, that they also, or at least an atmosphere can then be grown in Kenya, whereby you then have funding then being created for other organizations as a homegrown solution as well. Do you see it getting to that point, or is it a reality that could come about whereby this aid that's being offered is something of a homegrown solution in Kenya as well?
So I think it's a really good point. So on the first part of that, to me, these firms are terrific. They're really innovative. They're really exciting, and we strongly support them, and we hope that they'll create lots of jobs. But to me, the really exciting bit is when, as you put it, they mushroom, and the idea that is something is happening in fish, that idea is taken into dairy, or that idea is taken into fruit, and it's this. To me, it's when you get these platforms, or when you get the ideas, the business model ideas that have worked in one sector taken to another. That's really, to me, what the most exciting part of this program is. I think on the second part, and I think this is coming back a little bit to some of your previous questions, but what we were talking to the judges about was exactly that point. How do we get more Kenyan funding into this sector? Because if you're a firm that's proved its concept, it's got good performance, you can usually get the funding if the idea is good enough and the firm is strong enough. The challenge is that much earlier stage of the process where frankly it's risky. People are saying, I'm not sure about this firm, I'm not sure about this idea, but how do you get the funding into the best types of ideas earlier so that they can really fly? That I think is something where we're still having a conversation with the judges about how we get that private sector Kenyan funding into earlier stages.
From where you sit, what is it that would make that also become a growing industry where you have more angel investors or just investors who are looking at ideas and saying, this is a brilliant idea. 800 people had applied just for this particular funding. That tells you that there is real appetite for funding, and there are people who are coming up with innovations across the country. What would it take to get those ideas supported from idea stage to the proven concept stage up to scaling and all those other stages?
So for us, we're looking at what we can do as the government, but as the UK government. But I think it's a real challenge, and this is what the conversation we're having with the judges, because they know this sector better. Their view was very much along the lines you've outlined, is to try and get these ideas into angel investors earlier, and to somehow have it, whereas they're willing to make investments later on in a firm cycle, how do we get them to invest more in those earlier stages? I don't know what the answer is, but it's a very, very live question, and it's one that we're actively discussing with the judges.
What's the situation like in the UK? Do you have a similar situation in the UK? Are there some lessons that we can borrow from what happens in the UK?
I think there's always lessons to be gained from the UK, from the US, from other countries that have gone through this, including in East Asia. So that you need to make sure that those lessons are applied. But there's a lot of set of policy issues where you have you need to have a wider policy environment that's conducive. You often in the UK there are these much more risk-taking domestic ways of funding firms in the earlier stage. So there's a set of things there that we'll certainly look at, whether it's from the UK or other countries, about how you exactly how you support those early innovations or those early stage firms.
And also just thinking about now what the program that the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund has been running, going around the country, creating awareness about the existence of this fund, encouraging those with ideas and innovations to come forth. I think there's also a gap in terms of awareness. If more and more of such organizations were given the prominence, then it could also spark a conversation across the country, do you think?
So I agree. I mean, we've been overwhelmed by the interest in this fund, and when you're up in Turkana, you're talking to people there. We're getting applications, all down through the country. So I agree, and it's one of the exciting things I find with this partnership. We're working closely with KTN. We're working with the Standard Group. I think that's terrific. Through programs like yours, we get these ideas out there, not just for the Catalytic Jobs Fund, but more generally about the kinds of ideas that are really innovative, the kind of ideas that will create jobs, some of these specific business model approaches that can really help scale up. Because you often find here you have a lot of small-scale producers, but what the challenge is to getting them together so that they're aggregating, so that the market is bigger, you're losing less in waste, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can do more and more of that, having a much wider conversation in different parts of the country, in different sectors, I think that's exactly what the way forward is.
There are people who are listening to this and may have been in a position whereby you talked about COVID, and even before that may have lost their jobs or were not able to pick up on a particular business idea that they had, and are thinking to themselves, what is it that I must do, or what kind of idea is it that I must have that would attract this kind of funding, this kind of aid, this kind of development assistance. And they're really at a point where they're asking, what is it that I must do? In what direction is it that I must be going to be able to get this kind of help? What would you say to that?
So I would say a few things. So I think, firstly, we're looking at how we adapt our programs specifically for if there's a kind of COVID innovation response that can help. So even in the crisis, you look for, whether it's masks or other kinds of PPE, you're looking for ways that can be done locally. So that's to always look for that opportunity. The other thing is to really is to hold your nerve. So we're not adapting our whole program because we know that we're bouncing back. We're beginning to bounce back, and having firms being ready for that is something that's really, really important. You don't want to tilt everything towards COVID. And then the third thing is to look out for the people in their sector, the people in their area who are innovative, and to try and learn from them and to try and see what opportunities are available. So you've highlighted there are programs out there, in addition to ours, where people are funding firms. That's exactly the place to look to see what opportunities are available.
Does the programs extend its support to, let's say, networking, where all these innovators have a network where they communicate, they found some sense of collaboration? And then, on the other hand, things like benchmarking trips, where one can move from one part of the country to go to another, where, let's say, there's a solution that's being used on fish on one end of the country, like you said, and could be used on a dairy. So supporting those kind of collaborative networks to thrive?
So I think that's a terrific idea. We haven't done it with this specific fund as much as you imply. We've certainly done it with our digital program, the UK Kenya Tech Hub, because that's exactly what it's about. In those early stages, it's about the conversations, it's about the networking, it's about working through, it's about we provide business support. So I personally think you've got a point there that there could be more networking, not just in a sense showcasing, but actually networking and working through ideas for some of the firms who may have not made it into the top 5 each round, but who are very close and who could really learn. And also between the firms so they can compare ideas. Because a lot of these ideas are about building markets, about building a platform that aggregates these small producers so that you can find different ways that more of their product makes it to the market.
And then the other support maybe would be in terms of accessing markets. So, for instance, Ronnie Osumba was telling us about this company that's been working in Muranga County on mangoes, and now they're coming up with products, and the better part of their market now is the export market. Would the High Commission, or through this program, be helping such organizations also access markets or even find markets in the UK?
So I think this is one of the really exciting options, and I think Ronnie was talking about Mionga Fresh, and they're already accessing the German market, and one of our previous winners, 10 Centers, they work on cashews and macadamia, and they're doing the same, accessing export markets. So I think there's a real point here about how you help these small firms where they can pool, where they can geolocate, because that's increasingly important for an export market. You want to know where the product has come from. If it's grown in an environmentally friendly way, if the quality is there, then these are exactly the things that you need, that a platform provides, that you can then export. And once you're doing that, then exactly like you say, the market is much bigger.
So what happens after the money? For these organizations who've clearly gotten a boost in the arm for their businesses, what happens after that? They receive this money, and what aid or what help is given? Because, I mean, it's great, but then in terms of management and in terms of looking through to make sure that they remain on said sustainable path is a whole other journey.
So that's exactly right. And what we do is we have terrific people like Ronnie and his team who actually help them continue. So they need to use the money wisely. They need to work out some of the other business issues. Life is never quite as you predict it, so you're always coming across challenges, and the team is there to help them work through. So that continues. And what we find actually is many of our partner firms, they find that support, that mentoring, that profile that they get, they find that as important once they've received the money and invested that in creating the jobs. And then if they cross that sort of stage, then they can come back to us for a bit more if they want to do something else to take the firm forward even further, to create even more jobs. So it's an ongoing relationship about how we're trying to help these firms really scale up.
So let's take a quick break here at about 12 minutes to 9 o'clock. Take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we continue our conversation. We are speaking with Julius Court, the Deputy High Commissioner at the UK High Commission in Nairobi, looking at the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund and what this kind of support is doing in terms of funding local innovation and businesses. Good morning. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Back shortly.
Spice FM. Njeri. Traffic.
This morning is what we're looking at Mombasa. It's still piling up all the way now towards General. Highway Campus Bumper to west, very slowly towards the city. Coming out of the police are manning Outer Ring Road at Donholm, and manning, taken to be whatever it's taken to be, it's slowing down traffic today. Maybe their boss will show up like he did on Gong Road a few days ago. We'll take a look at that. Give us more information as you find it. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
And we're back to conversation with Deputy High Commissioner, the UK High Commission in Nairobi, CT Muga.
What I'm hearing is actually very laudable. And sometimes for this to be something, not a one-off, but more of a continuum, there needs to be an incubator, a hub. Now, I'm changing direction a little bit. There has been talk of a UK Kenya Tech Hub as part of the Prosperity Fund. Could you tell us a little bit about it and where it has gone to, what it's intended to achieve?
Yeah, thank you. So this is an idea that we do in a number of countries here, South Africa in particular, and it's really about bringing the ideas from the UK side, where we because the UK has quite an entrepreneurial tech sector, but it's really about getting Kenyan firms, Kenyan startups, particularly on the digital side, but it's broader than that. And it's about them networking, and it's about providing some of the kind of the most basic opportunities and most basic information that firms can thrive. Because if there's one thing that we know in development is if you can leapfrog stages, and Kenya has such capability and such spirit to do that. If you can kind of leapfrog into the digital age much faster, and we're seeing that. Then you can really progress fast. So that's the basic premise behind it. It's very, very early in its development, and it's really about networking, mentoring, capacity building in the tech space.
Thank you.
How many of these hubs do we have? So the UK government is supporting this one. Then we have the other locally supported hubs, for example, iHub and the rest. Are you also working with these local hubs?
So we work very closely with the local hubs, and Ronnie and his team make sure that we stay as joined up, and it's terrific. I mean, there's hubs. I visited the ones in Kisumu, the Lake Hub. I visited the one in Mombasa, Swahili Pot Hub. These are terrific. I mean, physical places as well as virtual networks, where really some of the most innovative tech, digital folk gather and learn from each other and work with each other. So, yeah, we're absolutely focusing on some of these local networks.
Which is the other thing, that when you talk about hubs and these innovation hubs, we're mostly thinking tech, where people are coming up with the software or programs that can help, make business easier. How about just any other hubs? For example, maybe there are people who want to come up with art and they need an art gallery, so maybe an artist hub or such other hubs. Have you thought of supporting such?
So we don't support. So we have to be quite selective about what we support, and the funding is limited. But so we haven't, at least as the UK government through the aid program, supported art hubs so directly. I think there are others out there who do. But what we have to make a calculation is where can we get the most return for the small investments we make, and we think this is one area where we can do it. And I think what's exciting to me is that it's not. So when you talk about digital, it's in a sense the platform, but actually most of our grantees, they're in the agricultural sector because that's where most of the workforce is. We're also looking at manufacturing. We're also looking at other sort of digital service ideas. So in a sense, the tech is the enabler, but you have specific sectors where things really fly, and that's what we're trying to get to.
All right. So, I mean, now just looking at how this has developed and looking into the future, is there, I mean, just as you spoke about limited funding, is there hope for more? Because, and how long do you hope to keep this program running? Even as we come to the end of this conversation, how long do you hope to keep this running? There are those who may have tried to take a stab at it this year and were not able to come through. Is there hope for such coming?
So absolutely, there will be for this program there will be additional rounds, and I would encourage everybody who applied this time and who didn't quite make it to really go for it next time, because you learn so much from the first time. You see the kinds of people who got through. So I think certainly keep going from that and learn from those that did. I think more broadly, this is a multi-year program, so we want to keep going. And what we've found through all our work is that if things work, then they tend to keep going and get scaled. So in that sense, you can never make promises about the future, but certainly where things are really working well, where we're really generating jobs, firms are growing, the ideas are spreading, then those are the kinds of things where more and more people want to support, and that's where it gets really exciting. So I'm excited about it. I think we see so much sort of demand for this kind of project, and we see so much impact that they're having even in these early stages, and so much interest that I'm very excited for it.
I think it's a very good program, and we want to congratulate you and thank you very much for supporting such programs. Those, obviously, that receive the kind of money that they receive, 14 million shillings, to boost your business, that is a substantial amount that you wouldn't just be able to come across any other way. So the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund and the support by the UK government through the British High Commission in Nairobi, very good job, and we thank you very much, Julius Court and your team.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the conversation. And if colleagues want more information, it's kenyacatalyticjobsfund.org. Thank you again. Really enjoyed it.
Asante sana. We
Thank you
hope
very
to have
much.
you in the studio when we deal with this COVID-19.
Asante sana.
All right, have a good one. Very good program here that, just like you said, when you listen to the kind of opportunities that are there in this country. So this is just one by the UK government through the High Commission in Nairobi. There are others by the government itself. There are others by other organizations and other donor agencies. It's encouraging. Only thing is that people need to know about them. People need to know about them so they can participate. And like you were saying, you participate once, you're among the 800 applicants, you then maybe get shortlisted to the 100, you learn something, and you're able then to know how to tweak your pitch,
Your application the next time.
how to improve your application for the next time. It's something to keep going and keep going.
Sure. And I think as we look at, just sustainability and look at sectors that have been touted to save the economies of many countries on the continent, and to see that such is going towards, a lot of just, those who came through to seek for this funding are in the agricultural sector and are trying to now use modern best practices for sustainability, and to see that money can be put to this, it would be something that would essentially save communities. It would save.
But what stands out is the local participation in such endeavors.
Yep.
We hear of Safaricom Foundation, we hear of Equity Foundation, I'm sure other banks have
KCB as well.
foundation. We have these foundations, and I'm sure they contribute significantly, but they could do a great deal more. This really is what we're saying, because if you look at the huge profits that some of these institutions post, profits that are made here, okay, the giving back to the community thought process and thinking and ethos.
I think actually what we need is more and more success stories being told. For instance, the 5 companies that have won this year from the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, their story and where they started, where they are looking, following their progress over the years, what they've been doing, and then going into very many others, the ones that had won last year, the previous beneficiaries, and where they are at now, the impact that they've had in the community and the economy. Those are very important stories to tell. Coming to the top of the hour, CT, just remind us today's proverb.
Well, very simply, a close friend can also become a close enemy.
A close friend can also become a close enemy.
Yes.
Kikulacho kikongoni mwako, one of them, others.
There's a thin line between love and hate.
Thin line between love and hate, others. If you can think of any other, just tweet us at SpiceFMKE. A close friend can also become a very close enemy. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here, because the conversation continues in the next hour, and you can join the conversation as well through our live streams, SpiceFMKE on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, or www.spicefm.co.ke. Good morning, 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Now we have traffic as far back as Kenyatta University on the Thika Superhighway today. It's looking quite something, guys, and it means it's going to take us for some time before we get off of this one. Mombasa Road is doing a little bit better. Traffic is flowing a little bit smoother. Still bumper to bumper in some parts, but you'll get into the CBD without an issue. However, between Nyoshem Roundabout and Westlands and the CBD in between, there is bumper to bumper traffic on Uhuru Highway, and that takes you out of the running in terms of if you're trying to get somewhere in a hurry. You might want to use an alternate route before you get stuck there. So it's not been such an encouraging Thursday for traffic, but we hope it does get better. All right, keep us informed of where you might be stuck. We can spread the word. If you find an alternate route, let us know as well. We can share that. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, it's 2.5 minutes after 9, and thank you very much for tuning into The Situation Room. This broadcasts on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in Njeri and the surrounding areas, including Laikipia. This is in Nanyuki, 90.9. Malindi and the surrounding areas, all the way from Kilifi going into Malindi, through Watamu, 97.7, Eldoret and the surrounding areas, 96.7, 96.0 in Nakuru, which will come all the way to Maimahiu, go to Narok, go to Sotik and Bomet, 96.0, 102.5 in Kisumu and the region surrounding Kisumu. And then in Mombasa, crossing from Island onto the areas of Mombasa, and then crossing as well across the ferry into some parts of Kwale County, 87.9, and Nairobi is 94.4. We live stream the show as well on The Situation Room. This is www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Very many things that have happened this week. Fight against corruption from very many fronts. Then the politics of the fight against corruption. We have heard, for example, the deputy president now has been there sitting, he's like, he's like, see, you guys, you have always been saying corruption, Ruto. Now, Ruto is nowhere. This one's, you cannot say. And we saw even yesterday, he was hosting some leaders from the Coast Province. And those that were speaking were saying, walituambia twende tukakae nyumbani, tuoshe mikono, tuvae mask, kumbe walikuwa wanaiba.
That's what was happening when they told us to go and wear masks.
You know, it is good to engage in a running commentary on the affairs of the country. But I sometimes wonder whether in some of these matters, a little silence may speak a little louder. You see, it isn't as though what had been stated previously or what had been alleged previously has gone away. It hasn't.
It's still there.
Yes. And even if this is something new that does not relate to you, again, it doesn't mean that what has previously been alleged has gone away either. But when you talk about it, what you then do is you point to what's happening, but you also remind people
You're reminding them
of your own issues.
It's basically like saying, you guys were saying it was me. See?
So you brought me
I
into the
am not
conversation.
here. I'm not here, and it's still happening. So what I was telling you all along is that it wasn't me. I meant it. It's not me. I meant it. You can now see who has been involved. And then looking at all the headlines today have something to do with Ruto. Murathe and Ruto open all-out war over 2022 politics. We're seeing the deputy president hosting all these meetings now and talking about corruption and the fight against corruption and demanding accountability over the use of COVID-19 funds.
Some of these sentiments that are being made, I think sometimes, is it just in the whole drama that is politics, or are some of these things actually meant?
Like
What did the Jubilee Vice Chair say? We care who will come after this president, so we have to sit and scheme. We don't know who will be president, but we are working very hard on who will not be. Who will not be
It's
president.
just political games.
That's what I'm
Shape,
now.
really.
That's what I am asking. Is it just political speak? Is it just games playing out, or is there some seriousness to which this is being peppered with?
All
to
these
say,
games are
to
serious, by the
say
way.
that we will do anything with our power. Now, whatever anything is, that will
Whoever we
sort
are.
out. Whatever anything is, whoever we are, to make sure who will not be in that seat come 2022. It would be very interesting to see how this would actually play out. But that's what I'm asking. Because if these sentiments should be taken seriously, they're actually quite serious things that are being said here. Is it not? Is it more than political speak?
Look.
Or is it actually the position that is being taken?
If it's a question of name mentioning, this issue of COVID funds, the Deputy President's name has been mentioned. Yes.
Yeah. How?
Well, one of the people who is claimed, this very, very same relative of, who is alleged to be a relative of Tony Gashokas, he has also been mentioned as a friend of the DPs. You see,
So he's everybody's friend.
this
Of
is the
course
point.
you-
This is the point.
Eh.
If it's, you see, we are discussing mentions. We're not discussing a case before court.
No, mentions.
We are
or
not
even
talking-
direct link.
No, no.
Mentions.
Just
No,
because
no,
somebody
no.
is CT Muga's friend
That's
doesn't
it.
mean that
That's
CT
it.
Muga
That's
is
it.
then involved.
That's it. That's it. But you're guilty by association.
We.
Yes.
In this statement by David Murathe, we has come up 6 times. We.
But the Deputy President does have a point here. You see, it's like nothing can go wrong in this country without someone looking for a mention of his name somewhere. In that, he actually does have a point. And you begin to wonder, surely this one person, they're not two, just one person.
Is it the root of
You're
all
telling us
evil?
that everything we see happening in this country has to do with him. The answer in my mind is no.
What did he do wrong?
I don't think, no, this is politics. It's not a question of what you did wrong.
Well, he irritated somebody. That is why that very thing that you've said, CT, has come about.
Actually, he didn't even irritate anybody.
That's why that very thing that you said has come about. Because then something goes wrong and you throw a stone on all the people that it could possibly land on. It lands on the Deputy President. Why is that?
Pause for a single second and look at the competitive nature of our politics and look at the anatomy of it. One of the things that is standard currency in our politics is blame shifting,
Yeah.
finger pointing, standard. So and so did this, so and so did the other.
You
so
never
and so
take
did the other.
responsibility.
Never, ever, ever. By the same token, if they apologize, on that day, rest assured it'll rain.
Maybe a little bit more.
Even if it was in the
Rain,
middle
not
of
necessarily
January.
water.
Even in the middle of January and there's a drought, it'll rain. Okay? And if you're fortunate, you may even be visited by locusts.
Yeah.
That is what happens when they apologize. They don't apologize. Number two, if you look at most political disagreements, you will find that behind that elaborate disagreement and the many words, there's money. Who got what, who didn't get what. The didn't bit features very, very prominently. The issue that we deal with, even in our two august houses, it often has nothing to do with the subject matter of discussion.
Far be.
Not really, no. I think this particular parliament, both parliaments that we have, they are just about, by far, since independence, the most educated parliaments we've ever had. These aren't people who don't understand what's going on. They do. But again, our political culture is that everything has a price, and so people must bargain and ensure that they get the best possible financial package out of it.
So, if you listen to the political leaders, especially now in the fight against corruption, and the kind of rhetoric that you hear from them all the time, it depends on what side of the divide you are and what side of the divide your enemy is at that point.
Point in time. Yes.
Right? So, for us as the ordinary citizen, the hoi polloi, we're just sitting there, we're getting entertained as they steal, as they accuse each other, as they laugh at one another, and what we're doing is just cheering. Because, the conversation keeps shifting. I'm just looking at what the Deputy President tweeted yesterday on the issue of corruption, right? The corruption consultants, brokers, and conmen Some bankrupt in 2013 are now billionaires after looting while scapegoating William Samoei Arap Ruto. Their overgrown impunity is shamelessly making them steal even from the sick in a pandemic. The end is nigh. Nowhere to hide. No more scapegoating.
Is it?
He's basically hitting back and saying, all along, these guys
This is what I've been saying.
have been pointing at me while they are the ones who are stealing. These guys, by the time I was becoming a deputy president, they were bankrupt. Now, they're billionaires. Scapegoating has come to an end. And he keeps saying, he keeps, talking about such issues in all, fighting the fight against corruption and saying that it's all about matters of accountability are not issues that can be negotiated or explained about using other ways other than the law. Those engaging in the misappropriation of public resources must be held liable. This is the same gentleman who the other time when it was the issue of Aurora and Kimorer was like, but there's no money there. Let's follow due process. No money was lost. You can argue that technically he's not saying anything different. But politically speaking,
have changed.
politically speaking, he is saying something different. What is it that, with the leaders, and where are we as citizens when we sit back and watch these leaders saying this today, saying the other thing tomorrow? Last week we were having a conversation about the statement issued by the ODM Secretary General, which was also supported by the ODM party leader, talking about this particular issue of the COVID-19 money, saying we cannot even talk about whether money has been lost or not until there's a proper investigation, a proper audit that has been conducted. And yet this is the same leader, like CTU had read what had been published in the paper on that day. Previous statements were not talking about let's conduct an investigation. It was like, unless it's proven otherwise, we shall assume that the money has been stolen.
Yes.
And now he's saying, unless it has been proven that the money has been stolen, we shall assume that it has not been
It has
stolen.
not been stolen. The scarier thing is that you have people who are following and basically lapping up every word that these individuals speak. And it's almost as if there's no realization that they've changed tune in just a matter of days. And there are people who would have followed blindly in that direction. Then they come around and change it a week later. And there are people who are still following again blindly in that direction. And that's what I'm saying, that there must be absolute care taken when listening or heeding the words that are being spoken. The things that are being mentioned here. How serious are they? And that's what I started with. How serious are they? Is it just a game? The people who then essentially are being governed and led, are you listening to these things that are being said? Are you sure that your support that you're throwing behind said leader or said candidate is entrenched in this belief? Or is it just going along with the times? The wave, all right, let's see who gets in, and then it really doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter, because the game, you're being used as the ball, the pitch, the net, and everything. And at the end of the day, they carry the glory.
It puts us in that category that CT had talked about earlier, very much earlier at the beginning of this show, where we have, it's not about the tribes, it's not about the region you come from, it's about, who you associated with. It's about the class of, we know one another, we play in a certain league, and this other person is an outsider. Now you, being you and I, we are outsiders. So they will accuse each other. They're playing their own game up there, saying you've stolen, you haven't stolen. I mean, how much have I eaten? But you're the one who stole last week. But you look at the airline, or look at the railway, look at this. You're the one who has done this and the other. Look at the many pieces of land. Or, that's where the conversation is, and they are basically just fighting amongst themselves. Not really fighting, but just punching each other with very heavy padded gloves
among themselves. And you are the support players in this particular drama. But they're prudent and wise enough to give you the impression that you're actually a player.
Yep.
Or that they're even interested in what
that
you
it's
think.
about you.
Why do you think these statements of wananchi, the people, why do you think the people always features? And we throw in Wanjiko, we've added Fatuma to the mix now.
And they're very careful, actually, to also tell you which Mwananchi they're talking about.
Yes.
It is not just any Mwananchi. It is Mwananchi wa kawaida.
Yes.
You have got to know your place.
Yes, and they themselves at that particular point in time will align themselves to this Mwananchi
wa kawaida.
And they're anything but.
Mwananchi wa kawaida is not them. So there is us guys, Wanyanchi, and then there's Mwananchi wa kawaida. Mwananchi wa kule mashinani. Those words have to be used. The ordinary Kenyan. Wanjiko is not a rich person. Wanjiko will never be rich. Wanjiko does not represent this class of people. Wanjiko is the poor person. Mwananchi wa kawaida.
Wanjiko was created and consigned to poverty for the rest of her life.
Yes. Has one tattered lasso.
A really tired one.
From beginning to end. That is Wanjiko.
So when people say
cannot
things,
afford to go to the salon, has a headscarf.
As a natural rasta.
wow, okay. We're now going.
That is Wanjiko. Not them.
No. So now when we hear these sentiments that are being said about we care who will become president, it's the cronyism now that comes into play. It has nothing to do with this Wanjiko you're talking about.
No.
We care. We will make sure. We know who would be, but we also know who we intend should never be.
Should never be.
So where does this what did you call her? Where
Wanjiko.
does this Wanjiko come into play? She doesn't. And that is where the scales need to fall off the eyes of people for you to realize it's not about you. When they're playing to the audience, for that moment, it's about what you would perceive, right? I dare say in some cases, you're not even their audience. It's a message that it's being sent to the other side, as it were.
Never have been. Let's take a
Never
break.
have been.
Take a look at what's happening weather-wise. And then this conversation continues. It's 17 minutes after 9.
Spice FM, Malindi. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
Still mostly cloudy in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 12 today. Njeri, partly cloudy at 17 degrees, going to highs of 23 and lows of 12, a chance of a sprinkle later on. And in Nakuru, 17 degrees and clear skies. It'll change later, the rainy conditions with highs of 23 and lows of 13. It's mostly sunny in Eldoret at 16 degrees, highs of 20 and lows of 12, with thunderstorms in the forecast for later on. It's going to be a wet afternoon in Kisumu as well, going to highs of 27 and lows of 19, currently at 22 degrees. Sunny conditions at 20 in Kakamega. Rain will cool it down, though later, going to highs of 24 and lows of 16. It's mostly sunny in Mombasa at 25 degrees. The sun will stay up there, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Mostly sunny conditions in Malindi at 26. The sun is going to come out in all her glory later with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Looking into Kampala, where it's 21 degrees and partly cloudy, we'll see highs of 26 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is now foggy completely and is likely to continue that way for most of the day. It'll warm up, though, to highs of 30 and lows of 22. 9 degrees and cloudy conditions in Johannesburg, warming up ever so slightly. Highs of 22 and lows of 9. It's mostly cloudy in Nigeria, in Lagos. 25 degrees, going to highs of 29 and lows of 24. Cloudy conditions will rule the day in London, and we'll have some rain showers later with highs of 21 and lows of 12. In Paris, it's mostly sunny at 16 degrees, going to highs of 27. Partly cloudy conditions to follow. And it's finally Thursday in New York. It's going to be a warm Thursday, however. The low will be 22 and highs of 32.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
City, just again, for purposes of, coming directly into what we are talking about, just remind us of what you were telling us about the class issue and the class divide.
What I was saying was, you see, if you look at issues that concern us at a political level and the rhetoric that accompanies it, it sounds as though the issues we have in this country are tribal, as in I come from this region, I speak this language, and my community has this name called X, and I come from this. Now, this is what dominates our politics and also our thinking. And I was saying that is not an entirely true picture. Because if you look at what's happening in this country right now and you look at what we call the political class, that class cuts across this so-called political divide completely. And if you take it even further, within the so-called communities we call tribe, there will be other subgroups called clans. And if you move away from the subgroup called a clan, you'll go to a family. That discussion has also taken center stage in our political discussions, with families that are called one name being touted as those who want to rule forever, dynasties as they're called. And then on the other hand, if it was a boxing ring, you'd say in the red corner, you have the dynasties. And in the blue corner, you have Wanjiko and company. Now, that's the narrative. But the reality is this. If you accumulate enough money in this country, that is the thinking, and that is probably one of the things that is behind this mad rush and accumulation, and this abusive sense of accumulation that our countrymen and women have adopted. It moves you to a certain category, a certain class. That thing transcends any language, it transcends any geographical area completely. You then belong to that class. You can sit at a certain table. And that's what many of our people aspire to. Why do you think all this talk about four-wheel drives and huge fuel-guzzling vehicles come from? What do you think they're a symbol of? They're a symbol of belonging to that particular class. They are a symbol, and people want that symbol. So even if you don't have the oodles and tons of money to afford it, and it is a close aspiration, whether by lease or hire or borrowing, you will aspire.
It's the same common club.
Yes,
and once you join that club, now you start now playing that dancing tune.
Yes, you do.
Whether now are you aligned to this rich person A or rich person B?
Yes.
Is rich person B the one who's accusing rich person A of corruption this time? Does that mean that rich person A is not corrupt or has never been corrupt? Is rich person A as corrupt as rich person B? Who's making more noise today than the other? You just get confused. But if you actually just sat back and you looked at all of them have been accused of participating in corruption. All of them have been accused of abusing you, the voter. All of them have been accused or have participated in basically just insulting your intelligence throughout.
Continuously.
And they continue doing that by, saying, see.
The moment they do that, man, you're being insulted. It's like the statement that people like making when they're just about to insult you. Okay, with all due respect. Hack, you're being insulted.
By the time they say with all due
respect,
with the abundance
I'm actually
of respect.
not respecting you, but let me just say this.
Actually, they're not even saying that. You're actually being called an idiot.
Yes.
That's what's prefacing the statement. Okay, you idiot, let me tell you what I really think. No, on the other hand, let me tell you what I think you'd like to hear. Then you're told. If you actually consider for a single second the reality of what we have and this clamor, why did MCAs pitch a fit and want the same advantages that members of the National Assembly had? What? To say more?
To belong.
To discuss more? To belong to what?
This particular group of people then who would be able to essentially make decisions or then be seen to be influential.
You know what councillors
it's
used
all
to
about
earn
that.
in a previous dispensation? Per month, 30,000. Yes, if you're in a big town, maybe, I don't think it even got to 60. MCA's entry point, 10 times that amount. Entry point. And then, at that point in time, after the promulgation of our constitution, they were given grants to buy this. They were facilities available to them. Hitherto not seen. Was that enough? No. They looked and said, what else do the MPs have which we don't have? We also MPs. This.
We want.
They are MPs. They truly are MPs.
They are.
But in an assembly that is in the county. And they kept wanting more and more and more. Did the Mwananchi who pays for those benefits, did he receive more benefit? Did you hear a narrative of, when we get more money, we'll be able to serve better? Did you hear that narrative? No. They have, we want.
Well, yes. They use that example. They use that excuse. For example, if we get these car grants, we'll be able to access our people better.
You know something?
If we get this money so that we can set up an office, we'll be able to serve our people.
Eric.
If we get the Constituency Development Fund or the Ward Development Fund, we'll be able to serve our people. You are always the excuse that's being used for wealth accumulation by these people.
You see, Eric, that was what they may have said. My reference, I think I misplaced what I wanted to say was what they intended. Because the service that they spoke of did actually not, it never arrived home. It still hasn't to date. Okay? But even of greater significance, what is this one thing that a county can tell us that all these MCs gained from these many, many benchmarking trips they made to, from Czechoslovakia to Greenland or to wherever it is that they went to?
Exposure.
Yes.
You come back with at least some designer clothes. You dress
Have
better.
a global view of then how to impart some knowledge on a local level.
Yes, and you see, it doesn't stop there. You then figure, well, why, if I can become a member of the assembly of the county, why can't I be a member of the National Assembly? Remember recently there was a talk by ministers that they also wanted pension. Remember that one?
Yep.
And I thought, hey.
on top of everything
I said,
else.
hey, okay.
As long as you've served the people and you exit, you need to be given pension for the rest of your life.
Do you know what I find strange?
There's an ex gratia payment.
Do you know what I find
And then
strange? For the longest time, I don't know of other ministries. I know the Ministry of Local Government because my father worked there. There was a contribution, not just a normal contribution for pension, but I also know that government officials have an official government pension. I know. It may not be the sort of amounts that somebody may want, but the pension exists. Now, if you want more money, why don't you just introduce a scheme that will enable you to get more money? Why do you want this shortcut? Why do you want this?
Because you've served the people.
You've done
You
your
have
job.
to. You have to bring in the people
You've
somewhere.
done your job.
Eric.
You've done what it is that they asked you to do,
Nimefanya
and that's it.
kazi
And for
for
which,
wengi.
and for which they have paid you.
Yes, and that there was an understanding that you come in, this is what you do, and then you go.
That's what
this
you signed
constant
up-
patting on the back because you've done
That's
your
what you
job,
signed up for.
or the elongated applause forever and forever. It's okay. You did your job. Come and be going. Nobody needs you to now.
Look,
you don't need more. You don't need
People
more.
who
you
have
did
been
your
in
job.
government and have left, who didn't benefit from those things, are more than those who are clamoring now. And they got on with their lives. Children went to school, they did what they needed to do, they retired. If they went heavenward, they went heavenward. The pension that they were given, and that was due to them according to the understanding they had then. And you know, this pension thing is, it's understood. Okay? A certain amount of money is taken from what you're supposed to be paid. And it is also understood the employer also contributes. It's understood.
It's kept for you for.
Yeah, but if you want more, contribute more. After all, it's still your money.
I think it just goes back to pointing us in that direction, or the general understanding that a lot of these announcements or things that are said in public really have very little to do with the Wananchi.
Do you know?
Has very little to do
No,
with
very
those
little.
who are essentially.
When does it have anything to do with the Wananchi?
Essentially being governed. It has nothing to
Nduh.
do with you. So these things that
When
we
does
see,
it have anything to do with the
these
Wananchi?
things that we see being
All the
played
time,
out,
CD, the Monanchi.
all these things that
is
we
the
see
source.
being played out.
Without Monanchi, I will not be able to eat anything. Without Monanchi, I'll not be able to steal. Without the word Monanchi, I will not be able to justify
It can
any
be.
of my criminal activities. But now, so that they don't become criminal, so that they don't sound criminal, I'll be saying that it is in service of Monanchi.
But don't you also understand, this is what we're saying, and that's what I'm saying, at this point where we are, it is clear that you are not the focus.
You are never.
You may be the conduit, but you are not the focus. It is not about you. So when you hear these things and everybody is clapping, this is what our leader has said today, or somebody's jumping up and saying, oh, actually, this is not how we, it really isn't about you. And there have to then be, there's got to be some kind of move to say that we understand that really this isn't about us, and then that will fuel your action in the future. What we're being told now about, oh, actually it never was me. Oh, suddenly somebody else is guilty of corruption. You see, all along they were pointing the fingers at me, but it actually has nothing to do with me. Oh, we're going to make sure that such a person is not in government in the future or will never be the president. Nothing to do with you. as the Wananchi. Absolutely nothing. Or if you're fooled into thinking that this we actually involves Wanjiko, has nothing to do with you.
It's 9:30. Let's take a break, take a look at traffic, and then this conversation continues. Join the conversation. Post your comment on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or you can call 0719 012 600.
Spice FM. Njeri.
Oh, well, let's look at one place where traffic is not doing too badly this morning. It's in Mombasa. All clear heading to the ferry from Likoni. No traffic being experienced there today. And then getting on into Moy Avenue. It's also looking very good. In and out of town centre, not much can be said for Nairobi today. Mombasa Road, Thika Road, there's drama. It's okay coming out of Westlands. It's okay coming off Ngong Road and Langata Road. But these two major highways today, then in fact affecting the Eastern Bypass, has been absolutely cray. CT, it's been cray today. Cray.
Are you speaking Nigerian?
No. It's those things those chicks say. Cray.
Open your mind, City.
Open, CT. Open.
Even me.
Even you understand. Even. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's see what it looks like later.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Place of the citizenry and the place of the ruling class, and the difference,
Night and day, Omo.
night and day. When political leaders say that they're doing something for the benefit of Wanjiko, when, for example, the ODM party, like we were discussing in the 7 o'clock hour, the ODM party says that it is asking the MCAs of Migori to take action so that the people of Migori can continue to receive the services that they deserve. Because, their governor really has a lot of problems. Is it about the people? Or is it about the ruling class? When we see all these, the president, for example, saying that what we need to see is action against these corrupt individuals because we have to fight corruption in this country. Is it about the people? Is it about the ruling class? When the ruling class now start pointing fingers at each other, you see what this party is saying? See what Raila is saying? Raila is saying this about the theft of COVID-19 funds. Oh, you see what Ruto has been saying about the theft of, you remember the hotel, you remember the land? And they are boxing one another. Is it about the people?
And then they'll throw in Mudavadi. Just
of course, they'll bring in Mudavadi and they'll remind us about
some unsolved matter when he was Minister for Finance. And just when you think it's safe to get out of the water, they'll bring in Wetangula and remind you of some issue that happened in Tokyo, not even in Kenya.
In Tokyo. Or something that happened about gold.
Yes.
Something that happened about gold.
Yes.
You'll be reminded.
There are very many episodes.
And then the following day, the person who was loudly accusing this particular leader will be loudly defending the same particular leader.
You're a little baffled, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was that?
What was that all about? What was that all about? If you look at what, for example, I don't even need to look into what David Morathe must have said about Raila Odinga between 2013 and 2017. I'm sure I'll find something that is not
that guy,
in line with what
has
the sentiment
flip-flopped more than you can
and
even
now
say
listen to what he's saying about Raila Odinga and what he's saying about William Ruto, the same David Morathe. Same William Ruto, what he must have said about this person who was bankrupt in 2013 and what he's saying about this person who is now a billionaire in 2020. What has he been saying about the same person or the same...
But even of interest, what is he likely to say in the future?
In the future.
The flip-flopping continues. It's a constant.
It is.
And here we are. The leaders would like us to believe that they are doing all these things so that wananchi wa kawaida
Eric,
stop suffering.
you heard of the term conditioning, huh? You are put in a position where you are accustomed to certain things, and the things you're accustomed to more or less predetermine your behavior or how you will conduct yourself. So, as you correctly surmised, one doesn't even think. One just responds. See, that's where now the tribe comes in. That is the first port of call, because it is my tribe.
Yep.
No other logic, just that fact. Then it means it must be supported. The issue of questioning, even if it crosses your mind, you immediately delete that particular process and get back to factory settings. Support. And it's something we do throughout the country. Now, where it has gotten us to is where when a crime has been committed, you can see wrong has been done. And that is why the security agencies have decided that they should take you to the next level and take you to court. Still, we conduct ourselves as though some wrong has been committed. You're more or less, why did you have to arrest this guy? And you know we approach it, but what about so-and-so?
Yeah.
You didn't see what that guy has also done? Why are you harassing me?
But what about so-and-so? It's as though what they have taken this person to court for isn't really what it is being presented as. No. And then the concept of the ulterior motive comes in.
And
Why?
you know what is really painful is that this Mwananchi wa Kawaida who's used as a pawn in this whole game will actually play along maybe with full realization or without any realization. When you look at the Okoth Obado, the people who came all the way to Nairobi and were appearing at the Milimani law courts when Obado is in court. Look at Aisha Jumwa just the other day when she went to the police station in Mombasa and when she went to court. Look at the people who come out there, standing with her and saying, Kuna, Mike Sonko, when he's going to court or when he's going to the ESCC offices, and
The people who follow.
And we are talking about allegations and accusations of theft of public money. This is the public that is standing there saying, no, you need wet.
Because what has happened? What has happened to get people to be so myopic about what is really going on when this individual, is there something that you have traded your birthright for? Is there something you have traded your solidarity and support for? Is there something you have traded it for? For you to be able to support this person who is being put on, who's being put before the court of the state at this point, saying that there are allegations of fraud, there are allegations of mismanagement or abuse of office, right? But your support is for the individual. Is the support for the individual, or is the support for the goodies that may land in your hand because you offer that support?
Even if there are no goodies, by the way, our person concept syndrome thinking is powerful to the point where it goes beyond goodies. Our person. Goodies may be in the distant future, but it is our person, our son. Represent. It's something that we have. When Wangare Maathai won the Nobel Prize, she became one of the greatest Kenyans. In fact, at that point in time when she won, she was the greatest Kenyan.
She was.
Meanwhile, here she was being thwacked and beaten all over the place.
Just a couple of years earlier.
Yeah.
I think you get my point. When our athletes win, do you care where they come from?
No.
Kenyans. So there are psychological benefits that we derive from some of these achievements which actually stand out, that are not necessarily monetarily directed. But I talked about the conditioning. Think about the reaction that we have. It's a knee-jerk. I gave a perfect example, the crowds that follow, the throngs that follow.
But look at City just before you go up to that, and I think it does have some kind of monetary value attached to it.
I'm saying it isn't pivotal.
But if
if
these individuals who found their way then before court didn't have a penny to their name, were the bicycle riding MP in central Kenya, for example, you would not see the same crowds following.
Actually, you might. Let me give an example.
So you want to tell me the people who were following Aisha Jumwa from Malindi to Mombasa last week were her relatives?
Because they like her, because she's
her
from
village,
Malindi.
Her village.
I didn't say they were relatives.
Village people.
My point
what is
was
our people coming in?
I said it isn't always pivotal. I didn't say that the monetary consideration doesn't exist. I'm saying it isn't always pivotal.
So there actually could be somebody who is there because Aisha, I really
No,
support Aisha.
I wouldn't use Aisha as an example. I am simply using this. This is an academic discussion I'm having. I have not gone to naming specifics, but since we're naming specifics, let me talk specifically. All right? If you look at our political presidential races, go back and ask yourself, at what point in our history did we start spending lots of money when it came to those elections? Start there. Then your concept will become relevant. Prior to that, it wasn't really an issue. You had been a teacher, people knew you, you were liked, because most of our MPs at that time were former teachers.
Yep.
Okay? Few people who may have been businessmen, but teachers. Money was a consideration, but not a major consideration. It was what they thought, what you represented. And for a long time, the Uhuru narrative held sway. And there are people who actually even went into parliament because they were seen as freedom fighters.
Their participation in this.
That time came to an end. Just like the time for that came to an end when people did not give two hoots what you had done. If you had done good, thank you. Where's the money?
Yeah. What have you brought?
So where's the money?
Nakuja hapa campaign hata
Now,
ukuje na sukari.
That's the conditioning I'm speaking.
Surely. Let's hear from Zachary. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Morning, Zachary.
How is everyone doing?
Everyone is doing well. How are you?
Wow, that's good. And do is teaching us some Nigerian, and I would want to ask her whether she knows that the longest name comes from Nigeria, and it starts like something like that, yeah. And
is that somebody's name?
Yeah, in fact, it's longer than that. That's when now they're starting. You know.
You shall look that up and practice the pronunciation.
Sure. Can you look it up, Google it, and then tomorrow you try to pronounce it there in the Spice FM. Now, let me very quickly say that you guys are an inspiration, yeah? And Eric and Mwalimu Andrew there, and even Nduh and others, yeah? When a job vacancy arises, yeah? You are told, can you apply, yeah? Definitely, like, let me use you guys. You are there. You flaunted your certificates. You flaunted your prowess in the journalism trade, yeah? Or in the journalism field, yeah? Now, there comes a time, especially during elections, and we as electorate, we are told that here there is a job that you have to do. And the job simply means you are going to elect your representative, is it? What are we told to flaunt? Come with your voting card, yeah, and your national ID card, and of course you have to prove that you are Kenyan. But then there is this thing that you also flaunt, and the politicians are very happy. Our ignorance. And I told you this. There is a time that I mentioned about this lady who used to be UN something, yeah? Sijui repertoire or what. Anna Tibaijuka. And Mwalimu Andrew will be a witness there that there is a time that she said this, yeah? What worried her most is not the poverty that the people in the slums live in. It is that attitude that they want to hold it, to flaunt it, so that they can attract sympathy from well-wishers and donors. Is it?
Okay.
And you are like this. Now, look at your program. Your program is Spice FM is national radio, is it? And you discuss very, very, very important issues. But how many people call in there to show that, oh, what you are doing is good? It's only some very few people, me included.
Zachary, can I be a Kenyan? Can I be a Kenyan at this particular moment in time? Are you aspiring for a political post?
Me?
Yes.
No.
Whenever a Kenyan speaks well of others and they are unbidden, we ask the question, okay, so ulikuwa nataka kiti gani, mheshimiwa?
Hapana, maybe it's not kiti, but I want to be Mr. Andrew.
Yes.
I do. I'm not an aspirant to any seat, yeah, political seat, yeah. But I want to be a citizen who lives comfortably. Okay.
Yes.
In his country. Are we together there?
Yes, sir.
So I was saying that your program is a national program, is it? how many people calling there to support you or to say, oh, you guys, what you are saying is good and you are support you, and we wish every politician is listening to this program, and you are giving civic education as to how me and my readers and my country should read it, is it? But then all the time you are talking about COVID-19 money has been embezzled, what, and the people are like, oh, we are used to that. Oh, you see, this complacency. So,
good point.
I would just say, like Mr. Zanati by Juka, that we the citizens, we the Wajikos are the ones to blame, yeah?
They're the ones to blame.
And I hope you are going to have a good day.
We also hope that you're going to have a good day.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Asante sana. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. You can call in and let's hear what you have to say about this particular conversation.
It's interesting. They talked about the Wananchi then being faulted here because they keep coming back. Keep coming back, and the same Wananchi take you back over and over
wouldn't
and
fault
over
the
again.
Wananchi that democratically. You see, the Wananchi in many instances.
Which one? Wakawaida or the other one?
Oh, the we.
I'm not falling into that trap. I am going to stick with the word Wananchi, and I'm going to leave it at that.
But
now,
there's we the Wananchi, and then there's Wananchi.
You figure out where you fall in as you listen. Wananchi.
Yeah,
The Wananchi is often a victim. They may not even know. Why did I introduce the concept of conditioning? I went back into history and I said, you see, when money was introduced into our politics and in large measure, the conditioning began. So after a while, the process that we had previously adopted of simply looking at certain qualities that people had was replaced. We started looking at, we think of the remnants of, we used to look at what this person could do or who he was, but now let's look at what he's going to give us. Then there was the issue of, because there's the issue of giving and then there's an understanding of there being something to give, it was now, with the African culture of if you have a big man somewhere and he's one of your people, then it means the likelihood of these wonderful development goodies that normally come the way of such people will also trickle down to you. All that happens with time is that multiplies. So here we are discussing, this is not even a dragon, this is not even a multi-headed dragon. This is not even a hydra. This is an entire community of all these creatures, including Coco, which I mentioned the other day, who are now part and parcel of our everyday life, and you're wondering
what happens. Let's hear from Victor in Kisumu.
Yes.
Good morning, Victor.
Morning, City, morning, Nduh, morning, Eric.
Good morning, Victor.
I just wanted to contribute on the issue of following politicians. I think it's about economic empowerment. The moment you don't have money, you just find yourself following this politician. It's by design. And these politicians...
For handouts?
Yes, for handouts, definitely. And these politicians are wealthy. They can, however, start something like industries to employ the youth, but they don't want to because they think that these politicians will not be, the youth or the Wananchi will not be used. So I think that's my point.
Could I ask you something, Victor? Do you think, for instance, that politicians do not also look for handouts?
They look from some.
Yes.
They look
So
from
the Wananchi.
Yes,
politicians
they
look for handouts from the Wananchi.
They do.
Not from Wananchi. They look somewhere and bring it out to Wananchi.
Actually, they look for it from us first. Every time they hike their pay, who do you think pays for it? It's the Wananchi.
Sorry?
Every time the politicians hike their salaries.
That is not a handout, City. That is a grab.
That's a grant, definitely.
It's grabbing.
Thank you. Morning.
Asante sana, Victor. Sami Mungai says he's following silently from Nakuru. So, yeah, there you go, Zachary. Unajua Sami, unajua, the way you say when you hear someone is from Nakuru, I have a friend in Nakuru.
Yes.
Maybe you know him.
Yes, and then as we internationalized it.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're going to the UK. Very good. In fact, I have a cousin in the UK. You said you work there. You must know him. See, now that's taking the village mentality, and it's the same mindset we have with what we're discussing. We never quite divorce ourselves from it. We can talk about it, we can appear to be it, but deep down somewhere, at the end of the day, I come from this village. And somewhere, resident in my being is the thinking of the common villager in that village. I'm not fully divorced from them. Not really. Now, what shocks us is when pretenses are put down and then I behave like the villager I am, then you're wondering, hiya, what on earth is this guy? We thought, no. Please look at what's before you and accept it for what it is.
Highly educated
So
chap.
what is this?
Oh, we thought city. Oh.
And we've seen him throwing stones.
It's just a villager.
Yes, that
Now
briefcase is full of stones. Huh? And we
that's
thought
the thing.
and we thought the briefcase was full of money.
Behaving like a man from Tamu.
I am from Tamu.
Just remove the city from Tamu, but never Tamu from city.
Sweetie. So, at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at, isn't it? That's just it. And leaders, politicians, especially in this country, realize that that's where your allegiance lies. And they will pick at that to be able to use it to get any kind of support. Now, the thing is that it looks as if they will continue to ride on just that belief for the longest period of time, knowing that that's what Wananchi understand. So my person is my person. Regardless.
Do you know why this Black Lives Matter issue has taken such center stage, the discussion around the world? Is because everywhere around the world, people can resonate with this. Whether you feel you are the underprivileged, whether you feel that you are the one who is the privileged, but it resonates. Because that inequality has always existed. Even before slaves were taken to the West, the inequality existed among those people and among themselves. And that's where the class issue took center stage. Who is your father? Where were you born? What did your father do before then?
Yeah.
Those are the determinants. So again, which class did you belong to? This issue of Black Lives Matter is simply bringing out what has always been there. It didn't invent it. It didn't create it. It was always there. But now it's in our face. There's no running away from it.
We live with it.
There's no running away. You can't run away from it. We talked about Greenwood, Tulsa, or Oklahoma. That particular town was known as a Wall Street for blacks. Walls meaning it was burnt down. It was completely destroyed. Never resurrected thereafter. And the simple reason that excuse was used, one black man happened to have shared a life with a white woman. Things were imputed. In the history books, it is called the race riots. It was not a race riots. The white population, who were the majority, there were 9,000 people in that
decimation.
town. Yes, exactly. 300 people are touted to have died. But that community was destroyed completely. It isn't as though they required that incident. No. This is something they had always wanted to do. The excuse provided the perfect opportunity for them to do it.
John in Nyandarua, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you guys?
We're very well, thanks, John. You. How is Henny?
Yes, we are very fine. And you're having a very interesting debate regarding these politicians of our country. Let me say one thing. I hate to be called Wananchi because probably they call me Wananchi and I'm a quota in that inchi. You see?
Yes,
so you're not really place in the inchi.
Wananchi is somebody who owns that inchi. Is somebody who owns it. Maybe I own nothing. I'm a quota.
Yeah.
And this is the language that the politicians come with. Now, the problem we have is that our politics, for one, is an enterprise. Because you go into politics to make money. And you take advantage of the poor people in that area. So we have to change the perception, of electing people. We the ordinary people. We should divorce ourselves from being bought with money, because this is what has made our country get into the problem that we have. we elect leaders who are not supposed to be elected. And for instance, we have leaders who are very good, who are committed to serving the people, even cabinet ministers. And I'll pick one and say somebody like the late Robert Matano. He died having served in the cabinet for a very long time, but he died a very, very poor person. Maybe he was not an entrepreneur, but he was serving the people, and he could have managed to acquire the wealth he wanted at that time, but he never did. Today we have people like Dr. Bukisha Kitui. He has served in the cabinet for many years, and he served honestly, you know. So we should, as citizens of this country, try to pick out the best people and place them in our leadership positions. Secondly, the political parties belong to people. They have no ideology at all. We should try to put into the Constitution that political parties should have ideological concepts similar to parties elsewhere, and at the same time have a limitation of the number of political parties to be registered in this country. Because these political parties belong to individuals and they are tribalistic on the other hand. You see?
Yeah, good point.
We should change.
Hoping that it shall happen. John, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Right.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
You know, the other day, City, as we conclude the conversation, we were talking about how after every 5 years, the voter overhauls Parliament. About 75% of current MPs will not come back.
No, they won't.
They may at least spend 5 years out and then come back later, but they will not come back immediately. But we fail to look at the 25%, because that 25% is the same 25% that remains, and those are the owners of the political conversations.
Those are the we.
Those are the we. Those are the ones that once you get into that level, that's it. I move from this party, I go into the next party, people follow me. We were talking today, Shakil Shabir was just taking us around how move from this into the other, we all go there. We all go there because
what do these people do?
To have you captive for that.
Yes, what do they do? What is it about them that guarantees that they always have this captive audience? What do they do? What do they know? What do they understand?
They belong to that certain class.
What
and
have they done to get there?
They play within the same, they must have understood. And that's why you find, for example, those that try to pretend to belong are quickly reminded.
They stick out like a sore thumb.
They are quickly reminded that this is not.
This is not your place.
Not your place.
This is not your place, my friend. We shall decide who stays.
And that's why you then have such statements, just based on what you've said, that can be so easily explained, or rather put out in public. We care who will come after this president. So we have to sit and scheme. We don't know who will be president, but we are working very hard on who will not be.
So 25%.
Is that 25%?
Sounds ominous, but it's just a political statement of fact. Anytime there's a competitive political situation, that is exactly what's going on.
That's what's going on. City, coming to the end of the show, remind us today's proverb.
A close friend can become a close enemy.
Bas.
That's it.
Straight up.
Yep.
John, what was it that you said? John had his version of this proverb. Rafiki yako ndio adui yako.
We have to question John's understanding of the Kiswahili language.
Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Join us again tomorrow for 4 hours of uninterrupted conversations, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff signing off. Now until 3 o'clock, uninterrupted music. The likes of Dan Smith and Normani, the likes of Bobby McFerrin, Michael Jackson, and Ariana Grande. Good morning. 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life